Oh, welcome back, everyone, to the first Canada STEMathon Girls and Allies 2021. Everything is happening right now. Slack is a buzz because we just announced the teams who are having callbacks. So, hey, Mahak, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm super excited for the teams who received callbacks.
Yeah, and you know what, Mahak? I think just as a public service announcement, let's announce these callback teams right now because everyone deserves to know. So, we got Team 7, the Virtual Steamers, and Team 16, Sparks Connect, who are going into interviews right now as we speak. At the 1:45 time slot, we have Team 2, the County Kids, and Team 20, the Krantz Soldiers. That is 1:45. And Team 11, Team Not Exponent 11, and Team number 17, Wonder Vision, they're going in for callbacks at 2 p.m. Congratulations to all these teams. I know you're super excited about this. Everyone's buzzing. It's just so great to see. Like, I saw the celebrations break out when the callbacks got posted to Mac. I'm super jazzed and pumped about all of this.
I know this is so exciting. And also for the teams who may not have received a callback, we still have a bunch of prizes to give out towards the end of the closing ceremony. So you still have a chance to win some really awesome swag. The GP prize will be given out. So I'm really excited for that as well.
I think you have like over 14 awards to hand out, Mahak. So there's going to be a lot of people taking home hardware. So even if you're a team who didn't get a callback, there's still a lot of awards that you're eligible for. And we have a lot of stuff going here on Twitch while the callbacks are happening. So it's going to be really excited. But I just, hope everyone got some sleep at some point. Mahak, did you get some sleep?
I think I got too much sleep.
You got a little more sleep than you expected, my friend.
Yeah, I did. Maybe an hour and a half more. Sorry, Julia.
I think next year's theme should be waking up Mahak, and everyone can come up with different alarm clock apps. Since you also already seem to have a couple alarms set on your phone.
Yep, a couple.
That's
Just one or
great.
two.
But teams were working all night long on the solutions to our theme, limitless accessibility, and there was some great presentations, some great infographics, and we'll be taking a look at all the infographics later. And I heard the judges were completely wowed by everything you were all doing. So please give yourselves a round of applause. You are all awesome, and this has just been great. And like the event is still going right now, and it's really wild. The teams are being judged as we're talking, but we still got a lot of stuff happening here. So, but I also want to talk about, it's easy to focus on the solutions that have been made and think of it as like, yeah, you accomplished something. But I want to talk about how you all accomplished something because you exhibited skills. And, we talk a lot about like the importance of problem solving, the importance of more people with STEM skills, like the STEMathon. We talk about that stuff. But I saw some other skills that are really underrated. I saw some true creativity, but what most of all impressed me was the empathy I saw. Teams were trying to find solutions that really affected people. And they were really moved by saying, okay, this is a community that is in need. This is a community that has not had proper access for a long time. And teams weren't, coming through this with this model of like, oh, it's about how much money we make. It's about how much money we make. It's about how many people we can help. And talking to the teams, they were just like, wow, we did some research and I didn't realize that so many people didn't have access to this. I didn't know so many people, like how many drownings there were in certain communities, and how many people didn't have access to fresh water, how many people didn't have access to menstrual products, all these sorts of things. And it's like, wow, it was just like a refreshing twist on that startup culture. What do you think, the hack?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think it was really cool just like seeing everyone learn from each other, especially on like just Slack group chat or in general, like even from our panel discussions in the morning. And something I found really unique was that everyone's ideas or solutions to this one theme was like so diverse. Even in just like the way that they chose to tackle like the different communities, but also like the types of problems and the types of solutions that they came up with. Like some people chose to take more of like a technical route, creating an app versus others like curriculums or like a workplace. So I think just like realizing like how much growth there is, that we like how much progress we need to make in accessibility, but also just like when young minds come together, how impactful their ideas can be.
Right. And that coming together because we're still virtual and we've been doing this for a while, but it was just nice to see people connect. And we had teams where people have longtime friends and they've worked together before, but they were working in a different environment. We had teams of people who'd never met before, no idea who each of others were. We had some teams where people are on the same FRC team, but they actually hadn't met in person yet because their school has been mainly virtual or they've been in different cohorts. So they're on the same FRC team, but they hadn't met, but they were able to work together. So all these different ways to work together. And then connecting with this amazing group of mentors that we have, which are, and we're going to give them a few shout outs today, but wow, it's one thing to look at all their bios and see, okay, they've accomplished amazing things. They've accomplished great things. They're leaders in their fields, but also they were just so good at connecting with the students and helping out. And I think that's just so important. And there's a lot of reasons why First Canada is just this top-notch organization, but I firmly believe, and maybe I'm biased because I'm an alum, but I firmly believe it is because of the presence of our alumni who continue to give back in this program and know what it's like to be a student in this program and understand the stresses, understand the joys, and they really tailor the experience that way. And we're going to be talking to one of our best alums on this call later on, Shifa Abbas, about some of the cool stuff that she's been doing and some of her perspectives. But thank you to all our mentors and to all the students at the STEMathon. Take some time to thank your mentors and just like shoot them a message, send them an emoji, send them a funny gift, just do something, don't send them videos of them trying to put on a skirt at the Girls in STEM weekend over a pair of jeans. That was a little bit embarrassing. I was just saying, shout out to Hannah from Team 18 for embarrassing me like that. But it's been really great. And I'm just so excited, but we got a lot more stuff coming on today. This is just like, the opening, but we're going to come back with a very special guest speaker in just a second. All right, to open today's ceremony, please welcome to the stage, Chair of the First Canada Board of Directors, Dorothy Byers.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back, and welcome to the first day of spring, hence my very cheerful tulip scarf. I know that you're looking forward to your second day at our first Robotics Canada Girls and Allies STEMathon 2021. I'm Dorothy Byers, Chair of the Board of Directors of First Canada, and I know I speak for the entire organizing team when I celebrate the following demographics of your group this year. 85%, that's 94 of you, identify as female. 15% of you identify as male allies, that's 16 of you. Our students represent locations from across Canada. 88% of our mentors are female and represent both Canada and the United States. Our mentors, judges, and sponsors are from Synex, Rockwell, and Quanzer, all of whom are great supporters of First Robotics Canada. We are also thankful for our event sponsors, Rockwell, Magna, and Enbridge. We would not be together without the incredible support of these groups who believe in you. You have done so much together in teams addressing the challenges posed by our theme this year, limitless accessibility. If this year has taught us anything beyond patience and resilience, I believe that we understand the challenges of accessibility. We humans desire, above all, the opportunity to connect. I know that your projects have addressed the many ways that accessibility can pose challenges. You inspire all of us. And speaking of challenges, women face greater challenges accessing STEM programs and careers. And yet, we know that excluding women leaves 50% of the population out of the conversation, and that women can't alter the status quo on their own. We need men as allies to shift culture and promote a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce. There are many examples of the impact of diversity at the STEM table, but here's just one. Did you know that we have female engineers to thank for seatbelts to save lives? The original team was composed solely of men, and when they kept testing with crash test dummies who had female or child stature, they died. A woman came to the table. She suggested alterations that, when tested, saw positive results. So when you get into a car, thank women in STEM and their allies for your safety. I hope that the rest of your time together today is outstanding. Be sure to keep in touch with the participants you've met and have a great time together at First Canada's Women and Allies in STEMathon. Have a fabulous day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dorothy, for welcoming everyone and that fabulous message. Uh, we're going to be back with our next speaker in just a second. Now, Mac, wasn't that a great message from Dorothy?
That was really amazing, and I did not know about seatbelts. So that's really cool to hear. And there's so many like inventions by women in STEM that sometimes go unrecognized.
Well, I think it's also really important to remember that you need people at the table who have these sorts of experiences. And if you don't, you will be missing segments of the population. I think that's what so many of our teams truly captured today with as they were going through the solution. And they did lots of research and they consulted experts. And it's, you know, it, we can't be relying on this sort of savior complex. We need everyone at the table. We need representation from all groups to ensure that we're going to be able to solve these types of big problems. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. She's a longtime supporter of FIRST and a personal inspiration of mine, Dr. Imogen Coe. She was the founding dean of the Faculty of Science from 2012 to 2018 and is a professor of chemistry and biology at Ryerson University in Toronto. She is also an affiliate scientist at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto, where her research group studies the cell biology of proteins responsible for the uptake of anti-cancer drugs. She is the president of the Canadian Molecular Biosciences Society and sits on various boards, including Science Rendezvous and the Michael Garron Hospital. In addition to her work as a research scientist, Dr. Coe is internationally recognized as a Canadian thought leader in how to integrate principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion into science and technology, engineering, and math. She has advised academia, government, and industry on best practices and approaches to improve EDI and has contributed to the national dialogue about these issues through her various platforms. She is much in demand as a speaker and a panelist and has received numerous awards for advocacy work, and we are thrilled and honored to have her here today. Dr. Coe, welcome back to our first event.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen right away, just so that I can make sure everything is working. It's an absolute thrill to be here. I love my FIRST family very much, and I'm just sorry that we can't get together in person, but I'm sure we'll be able to do that in the future. And I'm just, all the stuff that you're doing is so amazing. And keep doing it. So sounds like you're having a fantastic weekend so far, and you're learning lots, and you're probably all experts now in equity, diversity, and accessibility and inclusion. So you can probably teach me lots, but I'm going to talk a little bit about allyship today and hope that some of this will be useful. So let's just go over here. Okay. So I always start with an acknowledgement of where I do my work, which is in Toronto, downtown Toronto at Ryerson, and Toronto is in the dish with one spoon, one palm agreement territory. So we need to acknowledge that there have been people living on this land and taking care of this land for thousands of years, and we need to be very respectful about that. The Wampum Agreement is a sacred treaty between the Anishinaabeg, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee. Those people came together and agreed to look after the resources, to work together, and to take care of the community and the resources and the land where they were living in the spirit of respect for the land and its resources, for sharing and for peace. And I really like to start with this because it's a really good way to frame our thinking about working together, working across diverse communities, for the collective good of everybody in a very respectful way and in a way that is sort of community-based. Now, Karthik mentioned a little bit about me. And yes, I'm a scientist. I'm a proud immigrant. I started out in the UK, as you can tell from my accent. And I've worked in the US. And so I have traveled around and have been able to build a career as an academic scientist, for which I'm very grateful. But like all of you, I'm also much more than that. I have a rich background. I have wonderful parents who raised me with a very strong sense of sort of social justice and fairness and respect for all people, a real appreciation for education and access to education. So I had very strong values that informed my life, my work. I have siblings here. I'm a dog lover. I have a partner. I have children here. So there are all sorts of characteristics that go to make up me and my values, which inform the way I think about the world and indeed the work I do. And so I am a scientist. I have a passion for science. I love science, but I'm also involved in social justice because I see throughout my career, from a very early age, I could see that not everybody had the advantages I had, and not everybody got the chance to do what I love to do. And I just didn't think that was right. I can remember as a small child in my little primary school in England, with the, which was a mixed school. I was about 7 or 8 years old, and the girls were collected from the classroom and they went off for sewing lessons, and the boys were collected and they went off, I think, for woodworking. And it made no sense to me. And it wasn't that there were girls and boys. It was just that there was an arbitrary characteristic that said, you're going to go do that, and you're going to go do that. And it didn't make any sense. It could have been tall people or short people. It could have been people with brown eyes or blue eyes. There were arbitrary decisions that society and education and adults and teachers and parents made that defined what people could and couldn't do, where they could and couldn't go. So I have spent a lot of time talking to all sorts of people here, organizations and groups and the government and national organizations and international organizations about science, but also about making science better and more inclusive. And it's quite possible to have a very strong sense of social justice and to be a very active scientist or engineer. Now, why do we have these exclusionary, things that go on? And you all know this. We live in a world where there are stereotypes about women, but not just women, women of color, people with disabilities, members of the LGBTQ2S+ community, First Nations people, young people, old people. We have a whole culture. We're drenched in this culture of stereotypes that define where people are told they belong, what a scientist should look like, all of these kinds of things. And this is Stephen Hawking, a very famous astrophysicist who, didn't start out in a wheelchair, but maybe if he had presented initially as somebody in a wheelchair who needed a mobility device, people would have made judgments about him, and we may never have been able to access that brilliant mind that he had. This is a good friend of mine, Dr. Mahadeo Sukai, who literally wrote a book about creating a culture of accessibility in the sciences. Mahadeo is legally blind, but he is a research scientist. He has a PhD in molecular genetics from the University of Toronto. And we know that there is sexism in science. Here is a very famous picture. I had to put an arrow here because this is the only woman in this picture of physicists at a conference. There's Albert Einstein, and this is Marie Curie. She was the only woman at that conference 100 years ago. And we know also that there are people who feel like they don't belong. So this is a little tweet from a friend of mine, Anthony Bonato, who is a gay mathematician who always felt excluded, like he didn't belong. People would make statements, people would make little comments that made him feel like he was on the outside. And I, when I was in my role as a dean, came in and said, no, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility are priorities. I'm going to speak up about it. I'm going to speak to it. And that made him feel like he had an advocate. We know the world looks like this. We know the world is incredibly rich. We've got this massive wealth of diversity and talent all over the place. So we need to make sure that science and engineering look like that. Why wouldn't they? There is no intrinsic biological differences in STEM abilities across genders or any other human characteristics. We can use science to study these things, and we have. And we know that everybody, that talent is distributed across humanity. So we also know that there are stereotypes, and this is a call out to all the mums, dads, teachers, all the adults who are watching this. Stop gender stereotyping kids, boys and girls. This is one of the things I speak to the most. If we want to close the gender gap in STEM, we could do it in one generation by not gender stereotyping boys and girls. Let kids have all the colors, all the toys, all the books, and it's our collective responsibility. We as adults must be allies to children and young people. That means act to challenge gender stereotypes, because it starts very early and it can be very influential in exclusionary kinds of cultures that say, you don't belong, you don't look like this, you're not going to be interested in this. You should go do something else. So that's a call out to all the adults, teachers, whatever, in the audience. And I showed you that picture from 100 years ago of Marie Curie with all the male physicists. That's 100 years ago, but it still goes on. So, you know, here's an example of a very successful scientist. He won a Nobel Prize for physiology, so Tim Hunt, and he made a joke a few years ago, that the trouble with having girls in the lab is that, quote, you fall in love with them, they fall in love with you, and when you criticize them, they cry. Obviously, people got very annoyed about this and angry and upset about it. And he said, well, it's just a joke. I made a joke, but that's not okay. How do you think that makes people feel? He recanted this, he apologized, but this is just the little things that can go on, the little attitudinal things that can go on that can be a real challenge. And it's up to men and allies and people to act to challenge these things, not just sexism, racism, homophobia, ableism, and these other things. Now, I try to be an ally because I have privilege. I am white. I have had a stable upbringing. I had opportunity to go to university. I had all sorts of advantages, even though as a woman in science, I've experienced sexism, but as a white woman in science and as a cisgendered woman in science, I have not experienced the kind of sexism that others, my colleagues, have experienced. So I have privilege, and that means I have responsibility. And I recognize, I know, and I've learned, and I've studied, and I've read that science is not always welcoming. So I try to be an ally because of that privilege and because I need to act to do something. And I know that talent is everywhere. But remember, allyship is active. It's a verb. So it's not enough just to say, I'm an ally. And when we had movements like Black Lives Matter last summer, there was a lot of empty words. I'm an ally, I'm an ally. You don't get to decide whether you're actually an ally. You can do everything, you can act, but it's really that community that decides whether you are effectively an ally or not. So I try to be an ally to my colleagues in, for instance, the LGBT community, to be an ally to my colleagues who are men and women of color, to my colleagues who are people with disability, but really it's up to them to tell me whether I'm actually being effective or not. And if I'm not, I got to work harder. So allyship is active, it's a verb, actions matter more than words, and you don't get to call yourself an ally. Those community members will tell you whether you are or not. So we all have to keep doing a lot of work. How can I go about doing this? Well, the first thing is to really learn about things like racism and sexism. Learn about things like microaggressions. So that little joke that Tim Hunt said, trouble with girls in the lab is they cry. That's a microaggression. Those are subtle exchanges that communicate negative messages. And we've all experienced these. We might have even said them foolishly, thoughtlessly. And it's the kind of thing that might come up in a team setting. It might come up in a setting where you're trying to like work together and somebody will say something and it's hurtful. It's a negative message on the basis of a characteristic, right? So it's a basis of a characteristic that somebody has. It's a negative message about somebody's core characteristic as a human being. That's why they can be so impactful and so hurtful. So microaggressions are things that we can learn about. We can learn to recognize them, and then we can practice actually challenging them. And to challenge a microaggression, you can think about micro-sponsorship. So a microaggression is a little aggressive. It's like a little mosquito sting, and continual mosquito stings or bites can really be exhausting. So continually being bitten by those mosquitoes. But micro-sponsorship is like coming in and giving a screen to that person. You are the person as an ally can come in and stop those mosquitoes. You can spray them or screen that person or actually get in the way. And that's micro-sponsorship. It's a way of sort of thinking about what you're actually actively going to do. Examples of this are things like mind your language, respect pronouns, pronounce names correctly. This is one I come across a lot in the university sector in Toronto because we have such a diverse student population. Learn how to pronounce people's names properly. I spend a lifetime having people mispronounce my name, but I have lots of privilege. So I realize that, you know, sometimes that can be hard for people. I work to make sure try to pronounce people's names correctly, and challenge inappropriate language. Check your privilege. We all need to be self-aware. So we all need to do, where do we come from? What are our values? What did you learn growing up? What did you hear people say about different groups? What did you learn from your faith community? Be self-aware, be aware of the advantages you may have now and in the future may not, and may have had in the past. And think about what advantages other people may not have had. Some people did not have the benefit of growing up in a stable environment. They may be immigrants that have come from a very sort of devastating background. They may be judged on the basis of their skin color or their accent or all sorts of things. These are all aspects that can chip away, can undermine, and can be exclusionary in terms of how other people make assessments about whether people should be there or not. And avoid diversity color blindness. So I hear this quite a lot, particularly from older adults. It's like, I don't see color, I just see people. I don't see color, I just see excellence. And what they're really saying is, I don't see people. Like, I don't see color. Well, if you don't see color, then you're not seeing people. Like, you're not actually seeing the people for who they are, the wonderful breadth and richness of humanity, all of that talent out there. Don't be color blind, be color brave. Embrace diversity as a competitive advantage. Be intentional, be respectful, learn about people who are different or people who come from other places. Be respectful, have humility, don't be color blind. So these are some things that we can actually do. I wanted to include here that microaggressions, particularly for women, can include gender-based harassment. And I don't think we talk about this enough in Canada in STEM, but in other countries, it's been recognized as being a real issue in terms of exclusionary behavior. And it's one of the reasons why male allyship is so important, because it happens, and it happens much more than we would like to acknowledge. So it can be things like sexist insults, women don't belong in science, name calling, relentless pressure for dates, all of these things. This comes from the big American National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. So this is a very prestigious organization, big organization in the US. And it can get much more serious. And so we have to recognize that these things happen, and we can be allies to each other. We need male allies to step in and actually intervene and challenge some of these kinds of activities, because this is inappropriate. This is problematic, and it leads to women leaving science. And I have lots and lots of stories, sadly, tragically, in Canada of that actually happening. Another way to be an ally is by practicing what we call the 3 Ds. So I didn't come up with this. I have to thank Farah Khan at Ryerson University. And these slides come from Anna Sophia, also from Ryerson University, now at U of T. But you can think about practicing the 3 Ds. So what is that? Be direct, distract, and delegate. So if you see something happening or you hear something happening, like a microaggression or somebody being inappropriate, maybe being harassing, or just making a racist joke or making a sexist joke, be direct. Actually, that is inappropriate, disrespectful. That's not okay. That's not how we do things on my team. That's not how we do things here. Or that's homophobic. That's racist. So step in. And if we're going to tackle sexism, we have to tackle racism as well. Distract. Actually physically get in the way. So this is one of the techniques that's actually taught for dealing with harassment in the public space. So if you're on a transit or a bus or a train or a subway or something, and you see somebody being harassed, you can actually physically get between the person being harassed and the harasser with your back to the harasser and talk to the person who's being harassed. Get in the way. You don't have to intervene. You're just physically getting in the way. Ask for the time or pretend you know the person. So if you see it happening, maybe at a competition, or you see somebody that maybe is distressed, you can go over and maybe have a little chat with them just to see if they're okay. And then obviously you have to be safe, and you can't always step in depending on who's involved. And so it's really important to know who to delegate to know who you're going to go to have this conversation, to tell somebody. And please, 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 do tell somebody, because I'm always hearing about things that happened last year, or when I've left the system, or when I finish my program. And it's hard to deal with things when they're that much in the past. So contact a teacher, a guidance counselor, a principal. Speak to someone near you who might be in a better position to intervene, work together. And if it looks like it's really serious, and there's concerns for safety or concerns for somebody being really deeply affected, then you can call 911 and get help. But speak up. We have a very Canadian sense of not wanting to be impolite. We don't want people to be uncomfortable. And I think sometimes that gets in the way of us actually doing some of the things that we need to do. So be brave. A couple of other things that you can do is actually think about intentionally. So up here, front of mind, frontal cortex, executive function in your brain is up here. Think of things that you can do to sponsor co-workers or fellow colleagues, team members from underrepresented groups. Speak their name, put them up for awards, talk about how they would make a great leader or a great spokesperson or something. Endorse them publicly, invite them to high profile meetings. So this comes a little bit more from the sort of corporate world. Make sure people know about their goals, make sure that people are aware that they have interests, for instance, in STEM. I have a great colleague who runs Visions for Science, Eugenia Duadu-Addy, who once gave a talk about running her STEM programming, particularly for marginalized, racialized communities, particularly for Black youth. And she said she got tired of having to explain to organizations and corporations that there was more for young Black men than additional basketball programs. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe there's more than that. Maybe there are people who are interested in more than just the stereotypes that we have about certain people, certain groups. So make sure that people are aware about people's interests, about their goals. Recommend them, put them forward. Sometimes that means putting yourself back. I turn down opportunities to sit on panels. If it's another panel of all white women, then they don't need me. And I give them names of recommendations for people to replace me. So recommend people, put them forward as long as it's comfortable and appropriate. And remember that we're all learning. Allyship is a continuum. Often we start out, particularly if we're privileged, if we've had all the advantages of just being unaware, of not caring, apathetic. It's somebody else's problem. It's like, well, actually, you know what? It's kind of everybody's problem. It's like, well, you know what? Actually, it is everybody's problem. I better do something about it. And then becoming an advocate and actually acting to do things, to challenge stereotypes, to challenge microaggressions. And I would say there's one more on this sort of a continuum, which is to be an accomplice. You want to be part of the system that is taking down those structural inequities, taking down the patriarchy and all of the systemic sexism and racism. So the next step on this continuum is accomplice, and that's what I'm aiming for. So allyship is a muscle. It gets stronger with practice and training. Keep working on it. Know that you're going to make mistakes. Keep helping to create cultures of inclusion that are the most innovative and the most creative possible. And it sounds like, you know, FIRST is just doing everything that it's so good at to really help build this muscle, build these skills, and really create the most innovative and creative people for the future. Thanks very much. I don't know, there's a little bit of time for some questions if there are any. Know that you're going to make mistakes. Be brave, not perfect. Perfectionism can get in the way. Perfectionism is a big challenge, particularly for young women. We are engendered, we are culturally conditioned to think that we must be perfect, that we must be the top in our math classes. No, you need to do the best that you can, be true to yourself, pursue your passions. Don't care what other people think. I love this little picture of this little girl holding up that owl. Be brave, be bold, follow your passions, be the best ally you can be to the people around you, and be the best that you can be to yourself. Thanks very much. I wish I was there. I wish I could see you all, but Karthik, back to you, I guess.
Well, yeah, and Dr. Koh, thank you so much for this great talk. And actually, if you have a little more time, we can definitely have ask a few questions. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and I've seen you, I follow you devoutly on Twitter, so I'm very into all your posts. And one thing I've seen you post about is the nonsense that happens in toy stores and department stores about gendering toys. And so I used to work at a company that was involved in the toy industry. So I wasn't necessarily in the toy line, but I was part of many of the discussions. And so I brought this up at the company at one point. I was like, okay, so because we sold robotic bugs, which is as generic as you can get. There's no reason for that to be gendered. They were multicolored packs. And Walmart said you have to either speak to the boys rep or the girls rep. And I shouldn't call out a sponsor like, they're not a sponsor, but like a company like that, yeah. But whatever, I've named them. Yeah. And to me, that's so, I had no idea, because as a customer, I have no need for that sort of delineation. And so I talked to the Walmart people, because I was like, well, why not ask and why this is? And they said, oh, when we've done testing, whether they've actually done the testing or not, who knows? But they said when they've done testing, that customers aren't as comfortable without these sorts of delineations. But has anyone seen any data that shows that? Or because it seems to me it's like almost like an easy excuse not to make change.
So there are studies that there are studies that suggest that if you provide the opportunity for guided direction to gender toys, people will find that easier, right? And if you open it up and say it's for kids, that the whole store's for kids, then people are overwhelmed. But the difference, but the way to address that is to have really highly trained staff, sales staff. You don't have a lot of them, but you have to have sales staff that say, well, what are her interests? Does she like dinosaurs? Well, we've got this great range of things over here. So I think there's, and that's maybe one more piece of work that has to be done. The reason that we have gendered stereotypes is partly because people don't want to do the work. Corporations don't want to do the work. It's work. And because people continue, parents and mothers are just as bad. Mothers are actually, in some studies, mothers are worse. Continue to say, no, I'm only going to, I have a son, I'm only going to get this, and I have a daughter, I'm only going to get this. So, it's a challenge, and we need to have a multiple set of interventions. So, one of the things is calling it out and simply saying, the more people that call it out, then the more those concerns kind of bubble up. In the UK, this has been very effective. There's this great organization called Let's Toys Be Toys. And now in California, there's legislation that you're not allowed, they're bringing in legislation, not allowed to have gender specific toys and clothes and that kind of thing. So that's the most effective way, is to legislate it. But I think continually challenging, there are, recommending stores that don't have gender stereotypes, like really amplifying them, using social media to say how amazing it is, really send everybody to shop there. And then calling out publicly, again, social media can be really good for calling out publicly, Walmart or, Joe Fresh. I hate the pinkification. You go into Joe Fresh and it's all the pinkification. It's not pink, nothing wrong with pink, but everybody can have pink. And everybody can have dinosaurs, and everybody can have astronauts. It's everybody can have everything, and just open it up. We have to keep challenging it and calling it, and stop buying stuff for gender. We have to do it as well.
Right. Yeah. I got, obviously the responsibility lies in these corporations, but we can call them out and we can put the pressure on them. And also with the pinkifications, the pink tax, why should something cost more if it's marketed to women, And there's so much of this nature in business where it's like, oh, well, we're just going to charge what people will pay. And it's like, well, that's not equitable. Like if we continue to go down mindsets like that, we're not going to get anywhere. And
it's a business model. Yeah.
Right. And it's one of the things I was so impressed with this weekend, Dr. Ko, the teams that we've had working here, because their task was to come up with a solution to the theme of limitless accessibility. And so many of them, their models were focused not on, well, this is the best profit model, but this is going to help the most people. And I love that divergence of thought pattern. And because also when you help lots of people, there is going to be profit as well. So you can have this win-win path.
Most of the studies show that if you actually start from a perspective of universal design or inclusive design, it actually benefits everybody. So if you start from that perspective, it benefits men as well. And I'll give you one example. It's a great Canadian example, which is the Canadian Coast Guard. Who knew? They're very progressive. And they are always looking for ways to improve their equipment and the way they do things. And they were looking at the equipment on their lifeboats or their ships or whatever. because they're all designed for kind of like airbag, car airbags, all designed for a standard 6-foot man. And so some of the equipment required large hands, male hands. And so they started to redesign some of the equipment so that it was more appropriate for a female hand, which is slightly smaller, and discovered that it actually was easier for men who were left-handed. So it actually drew in a population that had been underserved, that they hadn't recognized, and it actually made it better for everybody, right? So that's very common. So inclusive design is going to make you money.
Absolutely. Mahak, do you have a question for Dr. Ko?
Yeah, first of all, Dr. Ko, every single time we have you on the show, I always feel so inspired. I know we had you last year at the STEMathon too. So thank you for your words. I guess I just want to talk a bit more about how youth can be allies and maybe some strategies. I know you talked about how allyship is a verb. And I know sometimes even like transitioning from high school and this environment where you're with like the same group of people, transitioning to university or college or post-secondary might be a big transition. But do you know any techniques that we can use for that transition and also going into a new environment and how we can promote allyship there?
Yeah, I think, I'm a big believer in the power of networks. So find your network. If you're moving to a new location, whether it be a new educational pathway or a new job or something like that, find the networks that are going to support you and lift you up. Find the networks that are going to sponsor you. And it could be, there are these things called employee resource groups, which can be like, it can be all of the Black employees in a organization. Or if you're going into computer engineering university, there's almost always a women in science and engineering group, or there's a group that you can join who can be really helpful in lifting you up. And then the near peer impact can be very powerful. So you can be an ally. The most impactful allies tend to be ones who are sort of close to you in age. So if you are in university, you can be an ally to people in high school who are coming along behind you, and you can help lift them up. Similarly, if you're first year, you can find somebody who's in a fourth year position who can be your ally. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of work, and you have to find a network that works for you, and then be quite clear and be intentional about lifting up your peers laterally as well, and being allies. And I think we need to really be thinking across characteristics, right? So as a white woman, it's really important that I am an ally to my colleagues, my female colleagues of color, because I have privilege and they experience things I don't. But also as a straight person, I can be an ally, and I have to be an ally to my LGBT community colleagues. So to be really intentional about that, and to realize that that's important too. And so that's something that you can contribute, or you can find places, build the networks, make those connections.
Thank you for answering that question.
And there's one good comment in chat, Dr. I wanted to bring it up because I think it deserved a little bit of attention, because you talked about the ability to call 911, and someone brought up, said, some people don't have the privilege to call 911 because they're, they have fear of law enforcement, and that's important to recognize. And there's so many things like this where things, that are so common and ingrained in us. As a child, you grow up and your parents teach you call 911 when something's wrong, but it's another one of those things to think about, right?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it's, so we could do a whole weekend workshop, right, on this, and recognize that is not the option for somebody to be able to do that. You can only do what is safe for you. And that is really important, is to understand what is safe for you. And it may be that it's somebody else's job, it's somebody else's role as an ally to be able to do that and manage that. To recognize our privilege, and to recognize, how much we have compared to what are challenges for other people. I think, so I always recommend everybody starts from a point of self-awareness, and whether you're an organization or an individual, really reflect on everything that you have in terms of privilege, and then reflect on what that means for all of those people who haven't got all of that privilege, and start working from that place, and being really sort of humble and have humility and knowledge, listen and learn.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Ko, thank you so much for coming on. And also, we want to thank you for another piece. We did our broadcast yesterday, and we did not have any captioning, and we spoke with you, and you taught us a little bit about how to have captioning. So we now would have live captioning on all our broadcasts. So that's a big improvement for what we're doing. So thank you for that. And it's running right now at the bottom of the screen, which is kind of really cool to see.
That's great. Excellent.
And, for our community, if there's ever areas where you think we can improve and things that we can do better, we're all still learning. So, please reach out. And one thing I can say for sure about First Canada is we will absolutely listen to the feedback. And we're active learners too. And we're asking all of you to be active learners. So it's a big part of the process.
Absolutely. Well, you're modeling the behavior. You're modeling how to go about doing this. We're all learning. We all make mistakes and we're all trying to do better. And it's a journey. So
yes, indeed.
I'm really happy to be on this journey with you.
Well, we're thankful to have you on the journey, and we're very excited for all the young people, the Mahaks of the world who are further ahead on this journey than we were at this point, which is great to see, and there's real progress being made. And to all of our STEMathon participants, you're the ones who are making the progress, so thank you for that. Dr. Ko, thank you so much. I hope the next time I see you on one of these things, it's going to be in person. I cannot wait.
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. And thank you again, and take good care of yourselves. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Ko, and we will be back in just a few seconds. Welcome back. Now, we have a very special message for all the STEMathon participants. We have a message from Diane Oliphant, Director of Skills Development and Apprenticeship Branch from the Ministry of Education.
Greetings from the Ministry of Education. My name is Diane Oliphant, and I am the Director of the Skills Development and Apprenticeship Branch. I congratulate you on participating in this year's STEMathon, which will undoubtedly prove to be an engaging and interactive event. I am thrilled to see so many female representatives showcasing their STEM and problem-solving skills. It's also wonderful that through this event, you have the chance to engage with different representatives from industry and community to learn about their education, pathway, and influences that led them to a STEM-related career. The ministry's new math curriculum focuses on teaching coding and computer programming skills from a young age, with a view to improve problem-solving, fluency with technology, and to prepare students for jobs of the future. This STEMathon provides an ideal opportunity to extend this learning beyond the curriculum and apply STEM skills and tools you've developed as part of your robotics teams in a practical and relevant manner. I wish you the best of luck over the next couple of days as you work together collaboratively while fostering your innovation and creativity to develop solutions to real-world problems. Thank you to both the students and the mentors for coming together virtually and for bringing your energy, enthusiasm, skills, and ideas to the STEMathon. Thank you very much.
All right, we're back. It's really great to hear from the Ministry of Education. We thank them for all their support of First Canada and all the good stuff that we're doing. So, Mahak, we've got a lot of people to thank, don't we?
There have been so many people behind the STEMathon, including a lot of our generous sponsors who have donated so many awesome awards and prizes.
Yeah, so let's take a look and recognize these sponsors right now. Special thanks to Magna International, Enbridge Gas, and Rockwell Automation. And of course, to Mark Carty and his team from SYNNEX to bring all the cool prizes, all those laptops, Chromebooks, webcams, monitors. That is thanks to Mark Carty and the team from SYNNEX. And there was a few people from SYNNEX actually who you met today in the judging rooms. So that's really, really exciting. Mahak, which prize are you most excited about?
I think it's high because I always want First Canada swag, and that just tops everything. But I'm really excited about the notebooks. Imagine getting a whole new, brand new laptop. That's insane.
Yeah, that's going to be super, super great, especially for everyone going back to school in the fall. Right now, I'm sure a lot of people's laptops are running overloaded. I want to give a shout out to some teams out there because I heard some teams, their laptops were running real hot yesterday because Team 13 had a 12-hour-long Slack call. It's actually 11 hours and 45 minutes. And other people were running into the time limit on how long you could have a Google Meet for because that's how long these meetings were going on. The teams were just constant. They're working virtually, but it was they put themselves in the same space. And it was really cool to see. I don't know. It just kind of blows my mind. And so Mahak, we call you Mahakathon for a reason. One, because it's hilarious. Two, because it embarrasses you. But three, because you've had a lot of experience with hackathons. How do you compare this STEMathon experience to the hackathon experience?
I think the reason why I love the STEMathon so much is because it really is really diverse. And at hackathons, or the main assumption is that you need to know how to code. You're creating more so a technical solution. But even during today's event, we saw that so many teams created non-technical solutions, and then just like honing in on their own skills, whether that be business, marketing, looking at other aspects of STEM. I know Karthik, for example, mathematics, or looking at the statistics and research behind it. So I think that's really why I love the STEMathon. And also, I think for me, I love the First Canada community, and I think it's so awesome. Just like shout out to Emily coming through with all those polls on Slack, talking about like cats versus dogs, Brooklyn Nine-Nine versus The Office. I know that one got a bit heated, but I love the environment, and I love how diverse everyone's projects can be.
I want to say about the polls, the one on best pets, not enough votes for red pandas. Red pandas are absolutely adorable. There's a new one at the Toronto Zoo. Her name is Adira. She's a baby, and she hasn't had visitors yet because of Corona, but everyone needs to go visit Adira because she is the cutest little thing, and she just hangs around with her dad, Suva. Except a couple months ago, Suva was in mating season, so he just peed everywhere because that's what he does during mating season. It's a little bit weird. I don't know if that's the best way to attract mates, but maybe it works for red pandas. Or maybe that's why they might not be the best pets.
Maybe.
Maybe.
How do you know all this information? I think that's what's concerning.
I love red pandas. I follow the Toronto Zoo on Instagram. I follow the Oregon Zoo because that's where Pabu, the red panda, used to live, but now he moved to Montana. I follow Carson, the red panda. Gotta follow these red pandas. Not Carson Lamb, not our former LRI Carson Lamb. He's not a red panda. You know, there's this other thing that was so fun about the STEMathon. Like there was like all this serious work going on my hack, but we were also joking around and just having a good time. So I love it all.
Yeah, I think I especially like matcha or iced tea. I know Karthik, maybe you have to show off some like TikTok dances after this, but I can just imagine everyone's laptops burning with like 12-hour calls, or just like hitting that like point at like 1 or 2 a.m. where you have no idea what you're saying or what you're doing. You're just like typing like a crazy person, just like randomly typing. I feel that.
my personal laptop is pretty old, and it doesn't handle GIFs well. So all the spinning parrots were just like sending it into chaos. It was great. But you know what? We got a great segment coming up. We got a story time with one of like the most interesting and exciting mentors in all of our community. So we're going to come back with that in just a few seconds. All right, please welcome great guest that we have here. He is a First Canada alum, lead mentor for Team 188, the Blizzard, or some people called him the Bee Lizard. Did you know that, Shifa?
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was like I was talking to this one team in the States one time, and they're like, "Yeah, that other good Canadian team, you know, the Bee Lizard." I'm like, "Blizzard?" He's like, "No, I'm pretty sure it's the Bee Lizard." I'm like, "No, it's the Blizzard." He's like, "Oh, I guess that makes sense."
I recognize that maybe the teams from the South have never experienced a blizzard, so maybe.
Yeah, but they've experienced bee lizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they're just like crawling into their houses and everything like that. I'll get back to your intro. Global coordinator for an international nonprofit registered charity based out of Princeton, New Jersey, and a graduate of the Master of Arts program at Wilfrid Laurier University in Religion, Culture, and Global Justice, as well as a graduate researcher. Tifa is also an Ontario and New York State certified high school science and math teacher and tutor, having graduated from Medaille College. Is that how you pronounce it, or how do Americans pronounce it?
Medaille.
Medaille. Okay. All right. Medaille College with a master's in science and education. Did you take Waterloo out of your bio?
No, I mean, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, but thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me.
So I guess to start off, I just want to say, like, how did you enjoy the STEMathon this year?
It was honestly the highlight of this year so far. I know it's very early on, but so many of the mentors had been mentioning all weekend long that it's been so long since we've seen each other in person, that we've even interacted, because there's not a lot of updates that we have in life during lockdown. But it was honestly the most inspiring, and I'm so excited for these in-person events to start again.
Yeah, and it was just like, it was great kind of seeing the vibes of the team and working together. And so we brought you on here, and you've been on First Canada Live before. We've told, you know, kind of your first story, and we'll touch on some of the first stuff, but like you're doing a lot of cool other things that really tie in with this theme. So let's dive into this. So obviously everyone knows our theme this weekend was limitless accessibility. And for a long time, you know, since you were young, you've been an advocate for social justice. So, you know, thinking in broad strokes of our society, I know our teams touched on a lot of things with their projects, but like, are there any specific areas that historically stand out to you that where we need improvements in accessibility?
Definitely. I think, learning very early on as a participant for first, and then obviously as a mentor, like first wants to change the world. And I realized the immense capacity that we have and as people to be able to flourish and succeed when given the opportunity to be our authentic selves, to be unburdened by social and systemic constructs that serve to essentially marginalize society. So whether that be, as Dr. Ko mentioned, gender, sexuality, race, ability, all these systemic inequalities exist and only serve to burden us and not allow us to flourish.
Right. And I think that's one of the really important things to understand. And I think for our participants to pay attention, because today you all spent time dealing with very specific problems and coming up with great solutions that will improve accessibility. And that's one side and that's one end of the approach. But as Shifa said, these are systemic problems. So we need to get to the root of these problems that allow these inequities and these inaccessibilities to continue to propagate. So as opposed to patching a barrel, we need to just make new barrels that don't leak, And so that's the kind of step. So you always got to look at things from two sides. It's a similar sort of thing, when we talk about the environment. And, like, yes, I'm going to stop using disposable straws. And that's great. That's great. That's a great step to make. But the pressure's got to be on the side, like, why are we relying on disposable straws? And then say, oh, well, it's cheaper. Well, why is that cheaper? Maybe we need to learn how to factor in externalities into our cost and say, the cost is more than just what it costs to make. And like, there's a lot, right?
Definitely. And then the question is, in terms of analyzing these huge problems, it's, whether it's like the 100 years of colonization or race-based injustice in North America, systemic inequalities exist. In terms of the environment, you have environmental racism, like real concrete decisions that people made. I know Dr. Ko even mentioned these decisions, that arbitrary decisions that were made in society. And how do we tackle those while figuring out the real-time solutions to them?
Yeah, and I think the big problem is like it's also prioritizing, because it's like these real-time solutions. If we don't do these real-time solutions, people in the moment can't get access. I saw one team that was working on accessibility on the TTC, and like if we don't focus on this, there's literally people who cannot get jobs because they cannot go to where they need to go because of the accessibility. But at the same time, if we focus too much on these real-time solutions, we're going to continually be patching the bucket. And so it's hard, folks. And you've done such great work this weekend. And we need people who can think about these problems. We also need people, not just who can solve problems, people who can conceptualize what the problems are, see the bigger picture. Right, Mahak?
Yeah, and I think speaking of seeing the bigger picture and solving problems, I just found out that you're the executive director of the Decolonized Library Project, which is so awesome, and I never knew that before. But I would love if you could speak more about like the project and why it's so important to you.
Perfect. So I think, all of these things stem from, first, I'll be very honest, whether it's, you continue on in a STEM field or you go on to STEAM and go into the arts field. So I graduated from religion, culture, and global justice at Laurier, a master's program. And what I recognized was that there is such immense need in the community, in the academic community, to create a database or a platform that isn't gatekept or artificially blocked off. There's so many resources, research articles, poetry, film, art, creative media that exists. And because it's so difficult to get over the burden or the hurdle of actually getting published in some of these traditional spaces, we thought to create like a grassroots collective platform that, helps to mobilize the knowledge. I know in academic terms, we talk about knowledge mobilization, but it's how do you create a platform that actually does that? And so we came up with a platform, and it's open source. You're able to, as an artist or a collaborator, a researcher, submit your information, and then have it be a place to live and thrive, and also a place to network and collaborate with others.
Sorry, Bahak, please.
Sorry, no, I was going to say, I think that's so important because going back to last year's theme of education, I think I remember some of the projects really focusing on the accessibility part of education. And even when we look at like school curriculums right now in like high school or middle school, a lot of, for example, the English curriculum is extremely biased, and it's just like this a bunch of white authors or white men that we read about. So these books are written from their perspective. So when you go and like go live in like a different environment where it's very diverse, it's very different to align whatever you've learned from these books and understood like their perspective into changing that perspective. So I think you starting this project is so important. I'd love to like learn more about it after as well.
And it's really cool to see how the theory that we learn about is able to come in practice. There's so many, high school papers that everyone writes and papers that you write in your undergrad that just live on your computer. And this is information that should be readily available or should be shared with everyone. And so it's really cool to create a space that can do that.
Chip, are you looking for like a summer intern? Because I think Mahak is interested.
Oh my goodness, Mahakathon joining our team.
I'm just saying, or, there's probably 103 participants from the STEMathon this weekend who could also be a great asset for that. I think they've really been inspired. So when you came up with this, Jeff, how long ago, how long was this project in the making?
So it's been about a year of working with two other colleagues that I was in grad school with. And it was about bringing on voices that were maybe traditionally marginalized and giving them a voice. So it was a lot of working through our own biases, even as a grad student that might be well-versed in gender equity and diversity inclusion, it's really difficult on the ground. And so it's these constant check-ins that need to happen on a wider scale, so that even these like equity-based projects end up staying equitable.
So you said there was 3 of you who worked on this, and you said you put this together in a year. I think that's really inspirational and important for the teams in the STEMathon to hear, because you came up with some great ideas. And I know like you're thinking, like, yeah, we did this so we could interview with the judges and hopefully we could win some of the Swaggy Peas socks or something like that. But you turned this into something. Your projects could go somewhere. And there's 28 mentors in this group who would probably help you. And we could probably network you with others who can probably help you. So if you want to continue with your projects, just keep going with this stuff. I mean, we've seen first students do wild things, and there aren't, like the great Michael Jordan says, limits are like fears. They're often just an illusion. And so sometimes, people are like, oh, you can't start a business. You can't come up with a patent or whatever. Maybe you could.
You could. And there's definitely mentors that have done it before you and can give you so much experience and lived experience and knowledge and advice, as they have been this weekend.
Yeah, like Karen Lee is right there in our Slack channel right now, watching this chat and talking about this. I think the mentors were more focused on my Red Panda talk from earlier. I don't know why they were so distracted by that. It's not my fault the Red Pandas pee during mating season. But, it's really important. But Celeste Antel, who gave a talk, is in second, third year university, was just a Dean's List finalist just a handful of years ago, but now has her own business. And so it's, you can do this. They just put yourself out there. And also, but don't feel like a lot of pressure, because I think this is the other thing. We have so many overachievers. And sometimes we don't talk about the pressures that people who excel in school and excel undergo, because they feel like they're always trying to keep up. And it's like, oh no, Karthik's saying I should have a startup. I need to have a startup. Why don't I have a startup yet? I'm behind. And that's sort of stress. And it's okay. You move at your own pace. You pick the projects that you need to do, and you need to take care of yourself along the way. So don't be afraid to be bold and try big things, but also there's nothing wrong with not having tried big things. You've got to hit your points, and timelines move in different ways. I'm a big proponent that life isn't necessarily a straight path, and sometimes it loops around and sometimes it goes, and you go where you need to go, and hop off the road, that's fine too.
And what's really cool is that even within your mentors, Karen and Matt Glanfield and Praneet and our Judge Thuvishan, all of us kind of grew up in the same context. And what's really interesting is that all of them will attest to the fact that it wasn't linear. It was, for every one conversation where we had something really cool to share, something that we really accomplished, there was 10 others where we were really struggling and really trying to figure out what our next step was. So those hurdles are as much as they exist, there's always people around you that can help you through it. And, we might be sitting here like 10 years later, and you are the ones in our seats because you've gotten through it.
Yeah. And, I think it's worth thinking about because in Slack this weekend, like there was that point where the mentors all posted their bios and people were like, oh, this is so intimidating. Maybe we should have added some of our failures in there too. Because when you see the bio, you just see the successes. You know, you don't know that I took 5 semesters off at Waterloo because I was struggling with mental illness. You know, like people don't know that. They just kind of assume, oh, Karthik's just been super successful, great grades, whatever. And it's like, yeah, I had lots of points of success, but man, there were struggles along the way. There was self-doubt. And if it's okay to feel these things, and it's normal. And just because, you know, when you see people's LinkedIn or their Instagram or their whatever, that's where you show like all the positives or whatever, you know, like you don't see like all the bad pictures of my tulips. You only see the pretty ones. And like it's that sort of thing. Maybe we'll talk about your garden a little bit later too, Shifa.
Yeah,
We get back to that.
I think it's also worth mentioning that, you know, those like whether it's social media or just like our bios, those are most definitely just a highlight reel. There's so much more that goes into it. You know, even sometimes it feels, you know, there's this idea of like imposter syndrome, like we get somewhere and we think like I shouldn't be here, but some of it is like it's very real. When I read out other people's bios, you know, my own bio doesn't say that the reason I got this job after my internship, which is like really amazing, my dream job, was because I didn't get into like 4 PhD programs and had to try again.
Yeah.
So, you know, those, for every setback, it's like whatever, like an opportunity for a comeback. So that's so important to know and to realize, especially coming out of high school. There's so much that you've already accomplished just by being part of FIRST and being part of the billions of other things that you've been doing.
And I think it's also important to remember that to recognize that there's different pressures in different cultures about failure, where in some cultures, you know, it's just not a talked about thing. And, you know, I think, you know, all of us coming from a South Asian background can really relate to that, where it's just, you know, like even just that where I talked about I don't talk about that. And it was hard for me to spit it out. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to hear about this or whatever. Like, I hope like none of the uncles or aunties are watching. Like, it's going to be, you know, and you think about these sorts of things, but you know, and it's about embracing failure on your own terms. And, you know, you don't have to flaunt it out there, but if you can let people know, it's nice. So people realize, hey, you know, things aren't as, because that linear path is terrifying. And I remember being in high school, just kind of thinking, it's like, okay, I'm going to do my undergrad. I'm going to pull up at, you know, on Wall Street. And then I'm going to get hired by a company. They're going to pay for my MBA in the States. And it's like this and this and this and this. And it's like, this is what, and it's like, and when that didn't happen, I was devastated. And because I didn't understand that, you know, and like, now I look at myself, it's like, I'm very happy with where I am. And it's, I'm in a good place. And like, you know, could it have been different? Of course it could have been different. You know, like Dr. Strange said, there's 14,605 possibilities, you know, like it could have been anywhere, but I'm happy with where I am. And the failures that I've had have made me a stronger person today. And that is really, really cool. And so I hope that everyone who's watching can kind of relate to that in some way. And, you know, just, and think about that your failures, you know, they don't have to define you, but they do shape you, I guess, is possibly the way of looking at it. We totally went like off the board then.
I know, but
I love it. Yeah, this is great. So Shifa, you know, you talked about the Decolonized Library Project, but can you talk a little bit about your current job? I heard you recently spoke at the UN.
I did. Okay, so I think that's where it kind of comes back to like, you know, the highlight reel, because I started my job as a global coordinator for this nonprofit. It's based in the United States, but it exists in 17 countries. We have millions of beneficiaries that like look to us as a medical professional body. So obviously I took this job on during COVID, where the entirety of our membership is looking to us for COVID protocols and looking to us for how to restart their programming in a way that serves the population that's now definitely needed. They were underserved with like in terms of healthcare and medical services, but now they're facing a global pandemic. So the last year has been, you know, coordinating medical clinics and services, sending medical delegations to countries that don't necessarily have the infrastructure, sponsoring schools, helping the schools that we do sponsor transition online, and in areas that aren't necessarily as privileged as North America. And so that's been really cool. So when I talked to the UN recently, it was just on that same tone and we were speaking as civil society or nonprofit to these nation states that really would listen to us because we're the ones working on the ground and trying to advocate for those people that maybe were historically voiceless.
It is, well, first of all, fascinating. And the links all tie together. I'm going to go a little bit off the board again. What is it going to take for us to get vaccines distributed in Africa?
It's going to take understanding that there are real issues with how we privilege healthcare. And so we privilege healthcare based on business at this point. And business exists in North America, in Europe, in the Middle East, and Asia, places that people need to get back to work. So, vaccine distribution being privileged to those areas, being created in those areas, it exists as and manifests because the industry doesn't exist in Africa. And if it did, that would be where we were sending vaccines to get the workforce back on its feet.
And we need to remember, I don't want to cut you off there, Shifa, but we need to remember, Africa has controlled this virus better than almost any Australia. They're blessed, but like Africa has done an amazing, I remember when this came out, everyone was like, oh, it's just going to run right through Africa. Except people forget they have dealt with Ebola and they are the experts on contact tracing. What are we doing with contact tracing? But they do backwards and forwards contact tracing, and they locked down, and it was really, really impressive. And so, but they still need the vaccines there. And if we leave this continent of 1.3, 1.4 billion people unvaccinated, like the variants are just going to keep developing there. And so it's not just the right thing to do; we need to do it for everyone.
And what's also so exciting to see coming out of Africa is the differences in culture, like individualism versus collectivism. The reason that these large scale lockdowns and large scale contact tracing exists even in countries where mobile technology doesn't exist at the same level as it does in North America is because people care about each other and people care about the safety of each other. And that's something that we really, I think, in Canada have a lot to learn from is when you go out and you're not socially distant, you're not taking proper precautions, you're not only endangering your own life, but the life of others. And they are just as important and just as vital for your success and your flourishing as your own health, as yourself.
Yeah, and the tightly knit communities as well. I was reading a book about, it was written actually before this pandemic. It was called How to Survive a Pandemic or something along those lines. And the basic thought was that, it was speaking mostly about possible H1N1 pandemic and what would happen there. They say the best thing you can do to prepare for a pandemic is to get to know your neighbors. Because if, this pandemic has been awful, 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 awful. Don't get me wrong, but it could have been worse. And for example, we all still had access to food and water. Our pipes didn't shut off. That level of infrastructure came. But in a different type of pandemic, a worse one, that goes away. And then all of a sudden, you are reliant on your neighbors. And think about how many people, and I don't know if this is like a Scarborough thing or a Toronto thing, don't really know your neighbors. You see them and maybe you give them a head nod or a wave, but like how many people, it's like I've been living in the same house for almost 30 years now, and I have not set foot in either of my neighbors, on left or right houses before.
And it's so interesting.
I've known the different people and everything, but
it's so, it's fundamental because especially in Scarborough and Toronto, there's been such rampant homelessness that has arisen, so such high levels of evictions as well in the city. And it's like, your neighbor there's a right of your neighbor, there's a right of your friends, your family, and the fact that like someone in my own neighborhood could get evicted and now has to live on the streets, fend for themselves. It's like vital for me as a person, morally, like to contend with that and figure out a way to help.
I was thinking about this the other day because I heard the story about somewhere in Scarborough where they did some rapid evictions because the landlords they detected there was too much carbon monoxide and it had to be done really, really quickly. And it was in very lower rent housing or whatever. And I was thinking of like, if I was ever evicted, it's like, oh, yeah, whatever, I'll still live with my parents, like my parents will take me in or whatever. And then I'm like, but what if they weren't around? And like these people, like, where do you go? Like, got evicted because suddenly it's not safe to live in their apartment. They had to move out right away. We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's hard to get hotels. So where do you go? And this is where empathy, I've said it like 7 times this weekend, but this is why empathy matters. To think about being in those shoes. And you can't truly understand what it feels like to be in someone else's shoes, you know, but you can at least visualize and try and get that perspective and understand that there is, you know, we have to be thoughtful of this. And it just, I don't know, it's hard for me walking downtown and seeing someone who's homeless, and that we're almost trained not to think about it. Because maybe if we thought about it too much, we'd be overwhelmed because there's so much inequity and it would be too much. But like maybe our guards are up too high because then we almost forget that it's there. I don't know. Like I guess there's been like multiple dystopic novels over time written about this same sort of theme, but.
And I would say that's true. That's true about the invisibility of so many of these marginalizations we've talked about, and then we've worked through to some extent this weekend. So that's true for homelessness in the same way that it's true for poverty, in the same way that it's true for mental health. And that's something that, you know, we've worked on as first in the last couple of years. But it's truly like these invisible kind of marginalizations that make it so difficult. There's so many things that we don't know about each other, and it's that understanding and empathy that's necessary. And that was so good to see, I would say, throughout the STEMathon this weekend.
Yeah, and you know, and Mahak, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but like at some point we need to unlock the formula of like, how do we teach empathy? And first is like this beautiful program because, and you know, I've talked about this with John Abley before and Mr. Bredner and Dr. Flowers, that students come into this program through FLL or wherever they come out, and they come out of this program, and we know these students are more prepared to solve problems. They're more empathetic. They are better leaders for the future. But how did that happen? Because if we could ever unlock the secret sauce and squeeze that recipe, we would have a formula where we could suddenly teach corporate executives on how to be better and how to do this. But like, we're trying to figure it out. And like, we had a group of people who sat down last year and we talked through this. And one of the things that came up was micro interactions, where first students, you know, like sure, we tell them what grace is professionalism. We tell them, you know, like the story or whatever, but it's repeated micro interactions that happen at events that we don't even think about it. We're so conditioned when an announcement comes on that, you know, it's like, team 188 is looking for a 1/2-inch hex shaft. People automatically react and they open their drawers and they start looking, and like suddenly they have 7 hex shafts. And we just do it. And that's not something that happens in other places, you know, like heck, you can be on the bus and you can see someone get on the bus with a walker and like no one's getting up to give them a seat kind of thing. But like at the first event, it's so different. But like, it's just, you experience these things. You come in as like a grade 9 student and you see the leaders on your team, you know, like the senior students or the mentors exhibiting this behavior, like, oh, I guess this is what I do and whatever. But like, how do we distill that? I don't know. I don't know. Like, do you have any ideas, Mahak? I haven't talked to you about this before, but like, I know I've talked about plenty others.
Yeah, no, I think like when I think about first, you're like how it's shaped me, or like looking back at myself in like grade 8 or grade 9 and like who I am now. I think what really stands out is just like this whole like core values. And I think that's so like just like being in this environment, because I've participated in other robotics competitions before and I've never felt that same environment that I feel in first. And just like going to competitions, everyone being so helpful, understanding one another's situations, but like this whole aspect of it's more than the robot. And I think that's what really like stands out. Like I know I started off on like the mechanical sub team and then I ventured into like the outreach sub team. And I really like after experiencing outreach, and how you can have a direct impact on your community. I think that's so important. And then just like going to competitions and like relating with one another. Like this one experience that really stands out is I volunteer at this place called Air No Kids, where basically I teach children with disabilities robotics. And like starting off there, like going in, the only thing I could think of was like, yeah, there's not enough women in STEM. And I never really thought of how there's so many different, we talked about intersectionality and how there's so many different factors that play into like racism, class, like family income, and just like these different things like that. It also like ableism. Never really thought about that, and how I never pictured anyone with disabilities to be in STEM, which is like that's how I perceived it, because I never saw anyone with disabilities before in my life. So I think just like getting, this is like way off on a tangent, but I think getting all these opportunities first like getting all these opportunities through FIRST to connect with your community. And like more than robots, you're not competing. It's very welcoming environment. You celebrate everyone's successes. Like if my team doesn't win and like the team beside me wins, like we're so happy for them. And it's not like, oh man, I didn't win. It's not really about winning. And I also think like something that I really appreciate about FLL and FLL Junior is like the whole global issue or that connection to like real world problems. And that's what you're trying to solve. And I think that's super important. Sometimes most of the time you don't learn that in school unless you take courses like world issues or global issues. Yeah, I think that's so important.
Karthik, you mentioned like micro interactions. I think it's like all of FIRST as like an ecosystem, and especially FIRST Canada is such a, like it's, each of our interactions are so based in this idea of empathy, whether it's like, high level, like even starting from your mentors, like my models for mentorship were Karthik and Mr. Bredner and Rona Bredner, Mr. Hobbins, R.D. Javeri, like these people that modeled the behavior that became what I ended up becoming a mentor. And one of the other mentors this weekend, Barbara, was one of my first students who is now this exceptional mentor on her own team. I think it's like the modeling of the behavior. It's like a certain form of representation that that can't be, I mean, it's very hard to see it in any other context, but then you find it in your other extracurriculars, in your other, like, in a grad classroom, like being an advocate for another student that's being talked over, or like at work when someone's ideas are being, reframed and said by another person. It's like, oh, that's kind of connected back to that person that just said that. It's like these modeled behaviors. That's, I think, the way forward is if every one of my interactions is a positive one or a beneficial one, then that person then is learning and then able to extend that forward too.
I think we hit on something there because, whenever people ask you like, how has FIRST impacted your life? It's very easy, and like I'll use myself as an example. It's very easy to talk about like my career path and like the doors of opportunity. I had the opportunity to work at Innovation First because they recruited me because they saw what I was doing with 1114, and like it's like, so it's affected my career path in that way, and that's how I would always talk about it. But as I've spent more time reflecting, FIRST has changed who I am. Forget about my career. If you take the 17-year-old kid who had never done robots before or whatever, and like I was very brash. I was very aggressive, but being a part of FIRST and coming into that culture of gracious professionalism, it took a long time. It was not an overnight sort of change, and but I've become a more empathetic person, and I've become much more of a do the right thing as opposed to. I used to have that mentality of you can put a price on anything. You can put a price on anything as a mathematician. Now I still believe you can put a price on anything, except that you have to factor in all the other costs and the such. But I know that in many corporate settings, like sometimes, we'll talk about weaknesses or whatever. I've been accused of being soft. I've been accused of, having that killer instinct. But do we need that? Like, is that killer instinct? Like, and maybe like what our value system is what's tweaked and maybe we're doing things right in FIRST, because the comment I've heard a bunch of times is gracious professionalism is incompatible with a corporate environment. And I just don't believe that. And like,
with FIRST, it's like you're being told with FIRST, it's you're seeing a system where the gracious professionalism that we embody or we try to embody, it doesn't cut down on competition. As many times as I've lost to Karthik has only driven me to be better in what I do. So I think it's like, clearly competition doesn't need to be created in this hostile, toxic environment. It can be done in a very loving and safe and warm and welcoming way.
And right, I've talked about it in my TED Talk, like the concept of ethical competition, where we're trying to rise above our opponents as opposed to dragging them down. And I think that's so important. Like the STEMathon this weekend, this was a competition. Teams were trying to win. There's big prizes or whatever, but nowhere was there that sort of negativity, or nowhere was there, hey, we need to find out what this other team's working on to see what we can do, or that kind of skeezy sort of stuff. And the teams were just like interacting and having fun together. And it was just like very open or whatever. But even though there's like big prizes on the line here, and there's big opportunities, to get these laptops, to go on FIRST Canada Live and present to like the whole community. But it was just so natural. We didn't actually, as organizers of this event, we never explained that once to anyone, right, Mahak?
Yep. And I think even like this one example that really stands out is like everyone's sending surveys on Slack for other teams to fill out so they can collect data. And then they're going to be using that survey towards their project, yet everyone still continues to fill it out. And I think that's so amazing that we all like try to build each other up and try to help each other out when needed.
Yeah, and there was no concern teams of like, oh, I don't want another mentor to hear our presentation because then they'll go talk to their team. It was just like, yeah, like mentors are going to do this and they're going to all help each other out and they're all working together on this. And so that was really neat. In terms of other factors that promote this culture in FIRST, I think we can't underestimate the impact of the alliance system in FRC and FTC. Teams having to work together, because I am one of the few people left who participated in FIRST before alliances. And so, Mahak, did you even know there was a FIRST before alliances?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so back in 1998, the way the game was played, it was 1 versus 1 versus 1. 3 robots on the field, and it was independent. And so no one showed anyone their robot before the competition. You wanted to keep it as secret as possible because you didn't want anyone to upgrade. Like now there's only like one team that does that. But like before, it was like everyone hid their robots. And then, you know, people were still, the Gracie Professionals still existed. Don't get me wrong. And people were helpful, but it just wasn't the same. And also, your community was your team. You know, it wasn't as network first community. But once alliances came, you had to get to know other teams. And you just did because you're playing with them. So you're talking before the match or you're cheering with them. It's like, oh yeah, our teams are together. Yay, go teams. Cha-cha slide. Yeah. I don't even know if the cha-cha slide was written at this point. That's how old I am. But
I think there's a point in every show where Karthik drops like a year and then everybody furiously like tries to like mathematically figure out how old Karthik is because you
17. 17. Just 17. Let's hide the hairline, folks. Let's not let any of that stuff go visible. But the alliance system, it was a game changer, pardon the branding pun right there. But after it happened, like you met not just teams, like remember 188, we were the only team in Ontario at this time. We were the only ones, but like I met friends who are still my friends to this day from like Rolling Meadows, Illinois, from Team Wildstang, from Team 71, from Team 229, all these sorts of teams. And like that was the community. But we would never have met if it was like we would have met, but we never would have connected if it wasn't for these alliances. And I think it's just so neat that that Woody and Dean came up with something that has had such a, and it's so ubiquitous that Mahak had no idea that it didn't exist at one point.
I can't imagine FIRST without alliance selections. I think that's such a big part of it. So that seems so like strange.
Yeah.
And it's bred such a great culture of like, you've worked with these teams so often that once you graduate, now, I have friends from, I think more than half of my life has been spent in FIRST now. So these people that we've been to each other's weddings and birthdays and funerals and, big life achievements. Like we've gone to each other's like graduations and iron ring ceremonies. So it's, this is only the start because I know so many of you are just starting off your first careers, but it's going to be long and it's going to enrich your life in so many profound ways. And I encourage you to come back even once you graduate, to come back, even just to volunteer, even just to attend an event, if not to mentor.
The other piece, and I hadn't thought of this, but I think part of the reason why this community gets so interconnected is that volunteerism. Because you compete against all these people when you're in high school and you get to know them a bit, and whatever, who knows, whatever group chats, whatever things you're using, you send TikToks to each other. But then afterwards, the alumni come back and so a lot don't mentor their own teams because mentoring is a very busy, hard job. But when they come back to volunteer, you meet a whole new circle of friends. But you have like this common perspective. And it's really neat at these events where you're sitting in the volunteer lounge and there's people who don't know each other, but they're talking about, oh, you remember this event? Whatever. I go, I was the driver for that team. It's like, oh, wow, I was the human player for this team. It's like, oh yeah, we were on an alliance together one time. And that sort of connection bonds, but to all our participants today. And I think it's really important because this has been a very different year for all of you. And this might be your like first competition for the year. And normally at these events, and by the way, we're totally, this is not planned. This is not on the script. We would be thanking all the grade 12s, and we'd be thanking them and we'd say, come back. But this class of grade 12s needs a special thank you because they've gone through so much in the hardest year. And Mahak, you're a superstar beyond all belief. And I think it's not just the people who are hardcore involved, like our youth council, but the students, who, first isn't necessarily like their life yet or ever will be. But to thank all of them for everything that they've done, everything they've given up for society. Shifa talked about earlier, the betterment, and you've given up a lot. But First still will continue to exist, and we will be back with in-person events at some point, and they are going to be greater than ever. And we need all of you because we're probably going to have a bunch of volunteers who volunteered, for decades or whatever, who now after this like 1.5, 2-ish year gap might not come back to volunteer. We're going to need a whole new troop of volunteers, and we need you. But the thing is, it is the most fun you will have. Like volunteering at these events is just a blast. And like, I have so many friends that like, I knew them as competitors or whatever, but volunteering is when we became super, super tight and that sort of thing. And so I really encourage everyone who's watching today, because you participate in the STEMathon, if you are moving on from high school after this year, really consider volunteering, signing up for one of the events, and because it is so much fun. Shifa, what volunteer roles have you done?
Okay, so I have been, what is it called? Like a field resetter. I've done like safety classes. I've been a volunteer coordinator. I've been an event assistant, which was really fun. I've been like on the like planning committee too. And all of it was like pretty sequential. Like once you join the next year, you get a cooler role, and that's all the way from like FLL to FTC, all the way to FRC, and then even DCMP. So, volunteering is, I would say, like the most fun. Like I thought, nothing can beat being a participant, but I would say volunteering is even more fun.
I might even say it might be more. I don't know. Like for the last like 4 or 5 years, I've not really been an active mentor with 1114 anymore. But I still am enjoying First as much as ever, and just being like a pure volunteer, just like, helping 1114, 4525 and a couple teams on the side or whatever. I don't know, like there's a real special vibe to it. And like, maybe I'm past the point in my life where I need to be like building robots at 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever. And like, that's an experience that you don't get that side of the volunteering side, but you do get a lot. And there is also something really cool about spending 7 hours putting together a field with a bunch of people who are interested and troubleshooting those issues, or being behind the scorer's table when things are happening. Like I'm always going to hype up being an MC or a game announcer. I really want to get my hack in next year. I don't know if she's going to be interested.
I think it's also really exciting to like be able to like put together the magic that students see. And I would say that same about the STEMathon. I am very much like impressed and in awe of like what you've accomplished virtually. And I know there's so much planning that went in, and so many, sleepless nights, including yesterday, to put this together. But I think it's like, I mean, we saw the magic. I was like a beneficiary of the magic. So.
No, I want to say that also some of like the students I know we have around 25% or less than that who haven't participated in First before, but like you can still get involved through like volunteering or competitions, and like or mentoring teams when you still like, you don't need to have that first experience within the program to still continue it on. And I know Sarah left her email in the chat last time, but if you want to get involved in First, or are looking to find like a high school team to get involved in, there's so many different resources. You should definitely check that out.
Yeah, and if you participated this week and you're like, yeah, I love the STEMathon, I love stuff like this, get in touch with one of us, or talk to your mentor to get in touch. We'll make the connections, but we will find you a team, or we'll talk, we'll have like the illustrious, if we have John Hobbins talk to your school, there'll be a team there, like in no time. Yeah, the team's already there. They actually existed for 2 years. You didn't even know. Yeah. They're interviewing for chairmans next week. They're queuing for Einstein right now. That's the John Hobbins and Mark Brenner magic, but we could find a way. This program, I know I don't want this to sound like an infomercial, because that's not what we're about. Because we're like real people here, and we're pretty legit about this stuff. But like it's been life changing, and like that's why we put in so much time to this. Like Shifa is busy coming up with these amazing projects, presenting at the UN, traveling to Djibouti to work, and you're still mentoring an FRC team and volunteering. Like that's how much we care about these things, and it's because we really believe in it. And also, it's fun. So like as adults, it's still fun. So like if you want to volunteer, volunteering can be exhausting, and also we have to recognize that it takes a certain degree of privilege to volunteer. because not everyone can, because I was like, I can't take time off work. I can't take time off school. And that's okay too. Don't force yourself here. You gotta find your lines, but it is a great kind of thing that we got going on. So it's special. I don't know. So we talked about like the unique facets of FIRST that are helping us, create this next generation, right? People like empathetic leaders, problem solvers, and all this good stuff. And so, we talked about alliances and we talked about the micro interactions, but we all have a challenge as a community next year because we are going to have some FRC teams next year. Their grade 10s, 11s, and 12s may have never been to a FIRST event before. Yeah. So this culture that we're so proud of and that we just gushed about how amazing it is, it's not like we have to rebuild it, but we have to reinforce it. And it's on all of us to be role models and to exhibit this culture. And it's not like we're not doing that already, but to really kind of push it and explain why things are the way they are and explain what alliances are and why they matter and explain why we never cheer when a team loses, rather we cheer when teams win. And yes, that happens at the same time, I understand, but there is a definite distinction, where you're excited when your team wins or your friend's team wins, as opposed to, they lost. Like, that's not something we do. And I shouldn't say it's not something we do. Sometimes people do it, but we call it out and we say, that's not something you should do. And then people learn and they get better. Like, I know one of my good friends, like Aaron Kashelsky, tells this story about how when he was in grade 7, he made an anonymous Chief Delphi account to bash a team and say they are blah, blah, blah. And then he became a mentor for that team eventually and he like loves them and respects them or whatever. But because someone called him out and said like, that's not appropriate. And people learn this from this stuff. And that's the other cool thing about this community. Everyone's very open to learning and very okay when people make mistakes of being like, yeah, you made a mistake. That's okay. Let's do it. So that's, I don't know.
My infamous story is that I think it was my first time going to the Hershey Center. So I was in grade 9. And then the Hershey Center, if you can imagine, it was the venue for the Greater Toronto Regional at that point.
Yeah.
And it was
now called the Paramount Center.
Called the Paramount Center. So it was we got there ridiculously early at 6:30, 7 o'clock, where only a few of the key volunteers had been there. And obviously it's locked down now, but at that point, it was still early on in the morning. And so we had tried to line up, and then we found, I think a few of us on 188 had found an open door, and we had snuck in, and because we were children and also because it was an open door. And I remember we were trying to find trying to figure out the depths to which we could essentially get into the venue. And then we came across Mrs. Bredner, who was like, hey, are you supposed to be here, Team 188? And it was the nicest way to ever get caught and then be told that you did something terrible. And I remember it was there was so much immense guilt for what we had done, not understanding necessarily how impactful it would have been if we had stayed in there. And obviously seats are important and all of these things, but it was even just that admonishment. I remember for the rest of my life. And I remember in the way that I now admonish children that sneak into my venues. And, we do make mistakes and we do definitely mess up. And there's been other times where, we'll go through a strategy meeting and then someone will come up and say, hey, that could have been handled better. And you could have been a little bit less aggressive in some ways. And sometimes we're the ones telling people that exactly. And so it's such a great culture of being called out, but also being called in. So it's we're not banishing you because you made a mistake, but it's we're asking to have a conversation and decide how we can do it better next time.
And I also think that for students, when we think about a lot of the things that go on, because there's so many great role models in this program. People want to do the right thing not only because it's the right thing, they don't want to disappoint these people. And I just think back, I was I remember when I first started as an MC, I was so fortunate and privileged enough to be given that opportunity by Mr. Bredner. And I was just thinking the whole time, because my friends were like, oh, you can say this joke, you can crack this joke. I'm just I do not want to disappoint Mr. Bredner. Not that he would yell at me or anything like that. Never, 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 never. But I just wanted to validate his faith in me. And I think that's such a neat part of this program because, it's not about the screaming and the yelling. And it happens sometimes with mentors and students and whatever. And we have to be very careful because like it shouldn't happen, but like it happens sometimes, but at least it's handled appropriately in most cases, at least what I've seen on teams and stuff, because we do have an intense competitive environment, but there's just this spirit of like wanting to do the right thing because they've seen so many other people do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, what would Woody do is something I often think about when being posed with like tough ethical dilemmas in first, which come up, you know, they do. And it's really nice that we have that set of role models. And, you know, I'm sure that Mahak's generation you probably have a whole bunch of other names that, you know, like, you know, like the grandbabies, grand mentor children of us. Like Chipper, you were saying that you mentored Barbara. I'm like, oh, that makes like Barbara like my grand mentor, sort of, you know, because I mentored through that way. Just kind of like, you know, Emily Forster, one of our producers, I mentored her mentor, Tyler Holtzman, at one point. And so like there's these trains that go through like that. But like, do you feel that same way, Mahak, or am I just like talking here?
No, I'm just joking. Yes, obviously I do. I feel like Shifa and Karthik, like everyone right here, everyone on the mentor channel, like all of your mentors to us, as much as you guys, like you may not realize it, but like even like listening to you, I'm like, wow, that's so amazing. Like just sitting here getting so enlightened. But like reading those bios or just like the way that you handle situations. I know, I guess when I first so I've known Karthik for a while now, since like I was like grade
6, yeah.
I think grade 6. And I remember the first time I saw Karthik, it was at like one of our like this other robotics competition, and I made him sign my like sweatshirt, and everyone's like lining up. Karthik's just standing there like a celebrity, waving his hand, signing like sweatshirts and stuff. And then I'm like, yes, I got a signature from Karthik. And then fast forward like 5 years later, and then I'm like helping out with the STEMathon, and I'm just like, oh my god. Like I tell him, I'm like, Karthik's gonna be helping out with the STEMathon. I don't know if I can, I don't think I can sit in this call. Like, I don't know. I'm sitting there like super, like freaking out on the inside, but trying to be super calm. But just like even seeing how Karthik deals with situations in the youth council, for example, like making sure, oh, Mahak, you unmuted. Do you have anything to say? Or even like everyone, like Arthi Javeri, for example, or Kim Cooper. I think they're all so inspirational. Just seeing like the small things that they do really like, reinforces this gracious professionalism that we talk about all the time. And even without having competitions, I think it's still like present, and it's still present during the STEMathon. And that's super inspiring.
I think it's really cool also that like there's a generation now of like people that become like educators and teachers as well as mentors. So, you know, I grew up like seeing Sarah Sills with her team, and then I got to like almost mimic that when I had my own team. And same with Parth Patel from 610 and Thuvisha and all of these people that then became educators. And it was so cool to see how we essentially mimic these people. We start to, you know, embody the qualities that we learned from them. And I think it's, you know, it's only going to get better and better, I think, in the coming years.
It is, you know, it is wild to think of the students that a generation ago were competing so hard against each other are now like Matt Coffey. Remember like little Matt Coffey with the Quachi backpack? So yeah, he wore this. Now he's like the 6-foot drive coach for 11-14, looking like him and Praneet like at Humber coaching together, looking like a couple of models back there. And just like, what is going on? Like
it's like, let me pull up that picture from, you know,
yeah. When Matt was like, you know, 5'2", and like Praneet's like losing his passport on the bus, and I'm yelling at him at the immigration line in Rochester. Like, were you there for that, Shifa? Praneet like goes up to the immigration line, and he's like trying to get through. At this point, he didn't have Canadian citizenship, and the person's like, "Where?" He just starts babbling. He's like, blah, blah. You know how Praneet gets? He gets like all flustered. I'm like, Praneet, shut up!
Yeah, just
stop talking. But to be fair to Praneet, he did not actually lose his passport on that trip.
It was actually left accidentally.
It was left accidentally.
That's the story we go with.
That's what we go with. There's also the time that we could talk about Praneet when I think when he was going to Singapore for another school trip, he got locked out of the airport somehow, and I had to like. Sorry, this is
we should have like a whole segment on just Praneet stories.
Roasting Praneet, you know.
Roasting Praneet. I think that's the next time I come on. That's going to be our topic.
Yeah, and Canada roast battle with all the alumni. At a competition.
Great, because you know we're gonna have Shankar from 2056 come on, and then like it's over because that man knows how to roast people.
I can roast him. That man, I'll tell that birthday party story one time again. You know, like I don't want to bring that up. You know, we've talked a lot about this, and maybe we can just we've been like very serious. But I guess one thing, and this will lead to our more fun conversation. But we live in such a diverse community, and Southern Ontario just is so diverse. And it's important that we have to make sure that when we look around at a first event, that we still see the same diversity that exists in our communities, in our events. And if we aren't seeing that same diversity, and we don't, because number one, we still need to have like more women and girls, like obviously, like it's not at that 50-50 ratio. But we can't just focus on gender. We need to focus on the other factors. Like Mahak, you said you learned so much about disabilities and what we can do to make things reflect our communities, whether it be Toronto or Ottawa or North Bay, and just to feel that. But I know at the provincial championship every year, I get so excited. And when we do the intros for the finals, there is so much pride that I feel, because it's like, this is the best that Ontario has to offer. And, Ontario has offered so much greatness, from Wayne Gretzky, Jim Carrey, Mike Myers, The Weeknd, Drake, Penny Oleksiak, Andrew Wiggins, all this coming from this province, these superstars in so many different fields that people aspire to, pop culture and such. But obviously, I could list off as many scientists. I could talk about Dr. Coe, Dr. Julia Hannesberg, like all these rock stars in our society in different areas. But when you look around at provincials, it's like, yeah, this is Ontario. The diversity of teams, we've got North Bay represented, we got Saga represented, we got Brampton represented, we got Scarborough represented, we got Ottawa represented, we got London represented, we got all sorts of parts of rural Ontario, we got Windsor represented, but they're all like, it's just this one unified thing. When we're kids, you always talk about Canada. Like Canada is this mosaic of pieces that come together, but you don't always see it as a kid because your community might be more isolated. But our first community, when all these teams come together, it is just this so exciting and beautiful moment. I think we need to like truly appreciate the uniqueness of all of that. And so like that's, I don't know, it's very special to see. But on that topic, Shifa, like what's the best part about living in Toronto?
So I think the best part of living in Toronto for me would be, I guess it's part of, or like a product of the diversity, but it's definitely the food scene, because no other place I've like traveled the world now has the diversity, the availability, the accessibility to so many different kinds of food experiences.
Yes. Okay, so what's your favorite go-to place for food in the
city? Okay, so there's like this place down on Eglinton, like near the Danforth, and it's like an Irani place, and it's been the same family that's been running it, and you get like kubi day. I'm gonna like post it in the chat because it's like the best Irani food I've had outside of like the Middle East.
Wow. Okay, so Mahak, what's your favorite food spot? Like not fast food or whatever, but what's your favorite food spot?
Oh my God, this is so difficult. Also,
no, why? Because she lives in the West End, so it's like actually impossible for her to be able to pick one.
I can't say like 24/7 pizza that's right by my school, but I think this is a chain, but like I've been obsessed with this. I think it's Kung Fu Tea. They have really good bubble tea, and especially like the brown sugar bubble tea. I tried bubble tea before, and I guess I didn't get like something that I liked. I never really liked it. But then I tried this brown sugar one, and it hit different. It was so good.
Bubble tea has been like a theme throughout this weekend. I know Nikita, one of our mentors, sadly did not get bubble tea this weekend. I hope she gets it before the end of the show. That's on Rishi, her older brother. So,
did Barbara get her bubble tea?
I think so. I think Barbara and maybe Rishi got bubble tea, but all other Team Dave mentors were sadly left out.
Wow. And I also heard you were like doing some bubble tea deliveries.
Yeah, it just didn't happen. Matt took that off my hand. Matt from 4039 took that off my hands.
Okay, because like when I heard like you were doing bubble tea deliveries to Waterloo, I'm like, yo, I just want to exit on the highway, just like right here, like you can walk on the Medavay to like the like that hydro field to get to my house and it'll be there. So like if there's a bubble tea drop off happening, like please mango with peach with the coconut jelly, I'm set.
Okay, the same. Okay, at least our orders are the same.
Yeah. Oh, we
many other things, Karthik and I essentially followed Karthik's trajectory through life. We were part of the same, albeit maybe separately year-wise, but we were part of the same gifted program in the same elementary school, same high school, same robotics team, same undergraduate institution. I have definitely been following Karthik. I don't know how long it would take for him to realize, but it's been happening.
You needed to come mentor 1114 for a bit in there. Like you needed to do that exchange. You needed to do that exchange program at some point. But yeah, Shiv and I literally went to the same elementary school, just separated by a certain number of years, which I'm
maybe like 3.
Yeah, something like that. You know, the same places. Like we sat under the same trees. We played capture the flag in the same place. Was the flag football league still there? Did you compete for the snowball? Yeah.
I was so good, but the issue was like at grade 7 everyone's kind of the same height, and then everybody got taller and I did not.
For me it was around that same time too, because like I was everyone, so we do the track and field stuff at school, and like I was always like one of the fastest, one of this, and then the growth spurts hit and then I was not, and it's like but like it's like I can still jump, but it's like it is hard when they have like this height advantage or whatever, you know.
And that's when I got good at robotics.
Yeah. Exactly, something like that. I was a mathlete. Like I won so many trophies. We went to the North American championship at Penn State University. You know, finished, almost made the Canadian National Math Olympiad team. The top 6 in the country make it. I was 13th, so it was close. It should have been higher than 13th, to be completely honest. But like we can tell old math team stories and all this stuff. So, okay.
Were you also there for the Reach for the Top era?
We dominated Reach for the Top. Let me just tell you, we just schooled everyone. I think we lost 1 game in my career. It was, and I although see, this is before I became like, I learned about person, like gracious professionalism and stuff. I did twice get reprimanded for crash talking at Reach for the Top. Or just being like, in your face. You're like, oh, you thought you were gonna get that one, or like just like, you know, like putting my like foot up on the table and the buzzer under the leg. Very, very obnoxious.
Swaggy.
I've learned better since then. You know, you grow up, you learn better. Shiv, is Drake the greatest rapper of all time?
100%. He is not only a cultural icon, but like famous in his own rights, also like a triple threat, also just a cultural influencer. Like, where would we be without Drake? Sometimes you think about that. Would we have that Raptors championship? Would we have...
The global ambassador role can't be understated.
It can't. I really think, like, I mean, who else has done it better? Once he's been gone, like, we've been struggling, and so we need him back.
Also, Drake represented the whole city. For so often, the role models of Toronto represented a portion of the city, but Drake is an inclusive... It's for everyone. I know some people say I don't like his music or whatever, and that's fine, but Drake represented all the communities, whether it be Forest Hill or Scarborough. And that was a big thing. This was not, you know, like this was not a person who never left their little enclave, you know, and he reps Rexdale, he reps Regent Park, he reps, you know, Trinity Bellwoods Park, except be social distance.
It's really great that he like creates, to some extent, like he doesn't have to, but he creates the platforms for people like The Weeknd and people like Bad Bunny to become like colossal stars in their own right. And that's like who else does that, you know?
And Toronto was normalized, because before, you know, when I was growing up, it's like, you know, you'd watch much music and then like, it's like, oh, they have to play some Canadian rappers because they have to, you know, and we'd almost like be like, okay, whatever, like give me my Biggie and give me my Tupac, give me my Mobb Deep. But like Drake is like, it's just like, that's like, we don't appreciate how big Drake is outside of Canada until you leave Canada. Because, you know, we're just so used to Canadian superstars just being very, you know, present in Canada. But Drake has, everyone's like, oh yeah, like when I tell people here, it's like, yeah, like, you know, I was on the set of Degrassi with Drake, like our robots were in that episode or whatever. People here, it's like, yeah, Degrassi, that's great. You know, like, did you meet Mary McDonald too? I'm like, well, I did meet Mary McDonald, so she was great. But like, you know, and Drake, but like, tell people this too, like, oh, you know Drake? I'm like, well, he nodded at me and I nodded at him. So like, we basically know each other.
Like, I think like, what is it, like only 1 to 2 degrees of separation from Drake?
I think that's 1 degree. I think that's 1
degree. I would say
I think that's
I like when I drive to Crescent School for Boys, like 610, I drive past his house, which is like 1 degree of separation.
Yeah, for sure. At most it's 2 degrees because you can connect through me. So
yeah, there you go.
So it's like, and like we're basically family, so it's like 1.5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. Or like
I
pi
think
over 2.
also done on like through the theme is that he's also normalized a vibrant kind of like linguistic like powerhouse that Toronto was. So we had like our own slang, our own vocabulary that was like so foreign to other communities. We knew what we were talking about, and they all stemmed from beautiful marginalized communities within the East End and the West End and in Etobicoke. And he's normalized it, and people know what we're talking about all the time now.
Yeah, it's some really good stuff there. Hey, Mahat, do you have a question for Shifa?
Shifa, what's your favorite song? Or what's one song that really reminds you of like FRC or FIRST?
I would like to say that it is actually, I know Karthik brought it up, but the cha-cha slide. Because, like group dancing, I would say like in the last year, one of the biggest things that I miss is like being able to dance, like being able to go to a wedding and do the cha-cha slide and go to a first competition and do the cha-cha slide.
Cotton Eye Joe. That was
Cotton Eye Joe.
Yep.
It's actually very interesting. On my internship to Djibouti in East Africa, we went to like a place of dance, and there they play the cha-cha slide for everyone.
I love it. It's so universal.
Universal.
Everyone knows it, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
And maybe there's cha-cha slides being played at like first events in like different parts of around the world. Just imagine all
playing at Worlds, and Worlds is like the biggest stage. It's like the stage that we all aim to get to.
Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite song, or what's your favorite Drake song? Maybe that can be like our last question before we wrap up.
Oh, that's a big one. I also think that it would now like represent, like I think if I was to divulge it, it would like say a lot about me, and so I don't know how to feel about that, but it's definitely One Dance, because the cultural moment at that time, it's like it takes you back, and it takes the children back, it takes the adults back. So that's what's gonna be.
So back to on Drake as the best rapper of all time. So I don't know why I have a hard time admitting it, and maybe it's because I'm just older, and maybe it's because I grew up in the Biggie Tupac era, and those ones were so influential. And it's partially because I don't truly appreciate how big Drake is because I live in Toronto. And when you see the local person grow up, you don't truly get the scope of their international impact. But like to me, it's like I come back to Biggie, Pac, and Jay-Z as as the whole tree. And I think that we underappreciate Jay-Z now because he's married to such a superstar. Beyonce is a bigger superstar than Jay-Z now. No questions asked. Wasn't necessarily that way 15 years ago or like 18 years ago or whatever. But like, and so that almost like we forget, because now Jay-Z is almost Beyonce's husband, which is an awesome thing to be, but we forget that Jay-Z was one of the most influential rappers of all time.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting in that. But I wonder now, so after the pandemic, Shifa, are you going to be living in Princeton, or what's going to be up?
Yeah, so I am now waiting on a US visa. I'm going to have to move to the middle of New Jersey, which is like foreign territory for me. I've only ever lived in Ontario, or then only been in places for like short bursts of time. So I will have to move to NJ. But it's very interesting to think about not living in Toronto, because it's been such a big part of my life for so long. It's also hard to think about, like, we don't necessarily leave the networks that we have built in the city, but especially since things are so virtual, but it's going to be hard to not live down the street from, Parth Suthar. And so it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
Well, in Princeton, New Jersey, there's a mentor from the STEMathon who lives in Princeton, New Jersey, Libby Kamen. And
Libby Kamen! I'm going to hit you up.
She has a FRC team there, Team 1923, the Midnight Inventors. And they are, very similar demographic to like Theory or to Wilbur 188. And, I think you could fit in right there. And so Libby says she's in chat right now. Please do. So. There you go.
Oh my goodness, that's so exciting. You know, the last time I moved anywhere was when I went to Waterloo, and it was like really like nerve-wracking like first text to Karthik on Facebook Messenger to be like, "Hi Karthik, this is Shifa from 180. I don't know if you remember me, but I was like, I'm going to move to Waterloo in the fall. So can you like maybe let me know like what team do you think I should volunteer for? Not even mentor." And he was like, you know, there's this really great small first year team called Team Dave. They started out of St. David's Catholic. I think you should like go and take a look. And then it was like 5 years of like nonstop growth and just like success. And it's been so great to see them like, you know, keep going after I've left. They've taken some 188 mentors on and taken and sent a few off as well. And so it's been really cool to see.
How was the adjustment for you? Going from, you know, two different, because like every first team has its own culture. So going from the culture of 188 to the culture of Team Dave.
So what was really interesting was that we started off with a group of mentors that had come from like a diverse set of teams as well. So we had, you know, like Lee from 1114 and myself from 188, like two of the biggest and most successful and like oldest teams in Ontario. And so what was really great to see, and some teams from 2050, some mentors from 2056 and other teams from across Ontario. And what was really great was that we got to create this like mixture of like all the best strategies and all the best practices from our own teams. So, you know, there's like remnants of 188 and 1114 in Dave that is like just so, you know, it's like so flawless and seamless the way that we blended it together. I know like Lee from 1114 brought over this tradition of, you know, like when you stop competition, you go into your Friday night strat meeting. There's like, you know, everybody's like really high strung and also like needs to let it out. So everybody used to go around the table and like tell their funny story from the weekend. And it was like the most beautiful, most like entertaining couple of minutes. And then after that is like solid like business as usual. And just that practice itself, like it started at 1114, happens at Dave. We implemented it back when I got back to 188, and it's been so cool to see like how those kinds of things
2056 does it as well. Yeah, that was a Karthik special back in the day, because it's just like pickless meetings we just get so unfocused because everyone would want to talk about the random things, you know, like as you're discussing a team, it's like, yeah, and did you see when so and so like decided to eat like 7 hot dogs for lunch? And it's like, oh, can we focus up here? How is that helping us make our picks? So I said, everyone gets it all out. You can have side conversations, you can do whatever. And then the meeting starts, no side conversations, and then we're singularly focused. But like the funniest moments portion of the meeting, like so many people would join the meeting just to be a part of the funniest moment. And they'd be like, I'm out. You work on the pick list, the scouting and the analytics and the OPR or whatever. I'm just here for the funniest moments. And
it's like beautiful like moments of bonding like that. And that's like, it's so cool to see like how even like that particular like tradition can like stem. I think even, you know, Rishi going from Dave to 1310, like that's something that gets passed along. So it's like maybe now like an Ontario wide thing that we all do.
It's kind of cool how our team, like the various team cultures have propagated across, and it's because of the interconnectivity of the teams. And so, and like, you know, sometimes you see like unique things popping up, like have either of you, well, Shifa, I know you have, but Mahat, you've probably never been to like a first district or regional event in the US, correct?
No, I haven't.
But you've been to Worlds though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so Canadian events have this very unique culture. And so we dance less than they do. Teams don't bring flags, and that's okay. Like, it's okay. We're not a flag waving country in Canada. The US, they love flags. They just love flags. There's flags everywhere, you know, like, hey, we need some more flags. Can someone, you know, oh, guess what? Amazon, there's more flags available on Amazon. But our teams are super hyper focused on scouting. Compared to other teams, where like people in the US, like teams run to the front so they can get attention for dancing. Well, our teams run to the top of the bleachers so they have the best seats for scouting. And it's just like these neat cultural things about our events that are so special. But then like, we have our own, like, yeah, we don't dance as much, but like when Don't Stop Believing comes on, or like when Living on a Prayer comes on, and then like Praveen and I start singing together, and
Sweet Caroline.
Yes, these sorts of special moments. Or when we have our massive Woody Flowers line, with all these amazing people across there, and you see that, and you're like, Mr. Brenner is calling each of us out one at a time, and like you can look through the links or whatever, like, and he does it in chronological order. So you start off with Rolly Anderson, and then who was Mr. Brenner and Rolly Anderson were my mentors, and so and then you come down, and then like suddenly like there's Ian McKenzie, who was a classmate, another Churchill Heights graduate, Sean Lim, another Churchill Heights one. Together we were on 188, and we've gone on to other teams, and then it's like the folks that we have mentored or guided along the way, at like Tyler Holtzman, Jeff Allen, Derek Bissett, Uvishan, and then like another generation now, like Olivia, and now Vivian, who has yet to have her moment to come out on the field, but will have that soon, and it's honestly, I love our traditions, and I love the special things we do, and like the wild entrances we do at provincials, like we had, those giant robots that year, or coming through the logo, and
the best
the
part,
band, yes.
Also like the huge robot man.
Yes, the huge robot.
What we would be remiss if we don't talk about when Karthik needs to get people out of the pits at the end of the day, and he does his rendition of closing time.
I have not done that in a while, but maybe it needs to be brought back. I know Mr. Brenner's saying right now it does not need to be brought back, Karthik. This is fine. Sometimes things can be in the past, but I don't know. Mac, have you ever seen this?
No, I haven't.
So what we would do, and this is probably around usually when Schiffer was at high school more that this happened. We need to close the pits, and we need to get people out. And people obviously don't want to leave because they want to continue working on the robots, and we understand that. But at the same time, we need to close them because the volunteers need to go home too. Like everyone needs to go home. So there's like some competing interest there. And not that teams are ever upset about it. They're going to push boundaries a little bit, which is okay. Like pushing boundaries is something we
they want to do like that final touch. Like when you're queuing them, they're not pushing back, but they definitely are not working as fast as you would like them to.
And so my dear friend, she's like a second mom to me, Jean Willock, who used to do pit admin at so many of the events, would be like, Karthik, you want to get him? And so I would come on the microphone and be like, all right, everyone, it is 6 p.m. That means it's closing time. Closing time. Turn off. And I'm not going to do it right now. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to save that for event. But go through the whole verse. And it's like, I know who I want to take me home. I know who I want to take me home.
It's so
you get the warble in there?
Once you started saying that, I just saw the numbers on Twitch go up. Like,
at least they're not going down, I think when Karthik says Wonderwall, it goes down.
Today is going to be the day when I'm going to throw it back to you. Okay, this has been great. Shifa, we could talk so much. I think part of the reason why this discussion actually is like, I miss you. I have not seen you in person in so long. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a mentor for our STEMathon. But you know what, Shifa? We've just heard the awards are in. We know who the winners are, and it's going to be time to find out. So thank you for coming on. I'm sure you want to get back with your team because your team was a finalist, correct?
Yes, we got a call back.
Give me did you do a hype intro for your team?
I did, yeah.
Can you do it for us?
Yeah. Okay, so these are the lovely ladies from Allsparks FRC team 4939 who have only seen each other in person for less than 6 months. We have Prutha, grade 10, also known as P squared. We have Anna, also in grade 10, who was stuck in India for 2 months last year. We have Shorya, grade 10. Her nose twitches every time she laughs. And Shreya, grade 10, who enjoys going on pet finders and rates dogs on cuteness. This is Sparks Connect.
Very nice. And so every team was introed by their mentors like that, which was like a really, really special thing. And we're going to be finding out who the winners are in just a second, but we got a couple more things to do. But Shifa, thank you so much. You're a rock star. And honestly, Shifa, keep changing the world and don't ever stop being you because we love it and the world needs you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye, everyone. We'll be back in a couple seconds, folks. All right, we are back and we're almost ready for the awards, but I think it would be really nice because all the teams have been working so hard on their own projects for everyone to get a little slice of what the other teams have been doing. So let's take a look at this video so you can see all 23 of the infographics submitted by the teams. Those infographics were something to see. And, you know, I mean, you all know because you are all the ones who make them. But like for anyone who doesn't know, they did those in less than 24 hours. They were given the theme yesterday at 12 noon. Those infographics were due at 7:30 a.m. And so it's not just about making an infographic. They had to design the project and all that other stuff in between while working on this. And just like the professionalism, the graphic design, the branding, the content, the data, like it's truly emerging across so many parts of STEM and the arts STEAM, you know, and it's really special to see. What did you think of that, Mac?
No, those infographics were awesome, and some teams submitted it even before like 7:30. Some of them submitted during midnight. So just imagine like creating all this awesome content, designing, finding solutions, and putting it into this really great infographic.
I think one team submitted at 6 p.m.
Wow, that's 6 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my, wow, that's awesome.
It is something really special. Okay, we are going to be back and start the awards portion of this ceremony in just a couple seconds. All right, as we get ready to hand out the awards, we need to recognize a group of people who've been working tirelessly for months to put this event together. They've been responsible for setting up all the details for this event, large and small. Think about the logo, the branding, the games you were playing, the Kahoot, the scavenger hunt, organizing the Slack group, setting up all the judges' rubrics, recruiting the mentors, getting registrations, all the social media posts that have been put out, promoting the event, finding ways to get students to come to this event, networking with our speakers, making sure we have great people like Shifa and Celeste and Lisa on the show. They've done all of this. This is our STEMathon planning committee. Oh, hi, that's me and Mahak, our co-host, me and Mahak, right there. Julia M. and Emily F. from the First Canada Youth Council. Angela Tolis from the First Canada Alumni, and Aiden Monder, First Canada Alumni, on our planning team. Sherry Lynn Kashowski and Annika Pint from the First Canada staff, also on the planning team. So they're all on the planning team. It's the planning committee slides. Sarah Sills, Joanna Whitney, and Archie Javeri, all from First Canada as well. Thank you so much to the planning committee for everything you've done. And especially, I really want to recognize the youth council and alumni members of the planning committee. Like, you've gone above and beyond, and we know how busy all of you are, either be with high school or with university, and you find a way to attend every meeting, anything we ask for. Aiden behind the scenes, has been making that infographic video. Think about that. He had to wait till all the infographics came in at 7:30 this morning, and then he put together that video, or Mahak, you were working on changes and adjustments to judging information yesterday as the show was going on. It was just, we're all so thankful for everything you do in making this event possible. And also to you, especially Mahak, your expertise is just invaluable for all of us in this process. So thank you for teaching all of us, especially me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank First Canada staff for being so open to all the youth council members and all the alumni really making changes or giving feedback on certain projects. They really take into account what we think and how we want our vision. So we really appreciate that.
All right, it's now time to get ready for our awards. Mahak, do you want to tell them just like an overview of what they could be earning in the next few minutes?
Yeah, so we have, like I said, over $8,000 worth of prizes and awards to give out. We have some really cool, awesome First Canada swag that includes hoodies, lip glosses, masks that we're all going to be wearing. And then we also have some awesome technology prizes. So we have monitors to give out. We have some really cool notebooks, laptops, and then along with all of that, you also get some awesome First Canada swag as well. But this is all thanks to our generous sponsors, and the prizes are thanks to our prizes sponsor, Synex, which we're really grateful for.
So we really want to give these prizes out. And before we do that, let's reintroduce you all. You met some of them today as you interviewed with them. You saw them in opening ceremonies, but let's take a look at who our judges are. Naomi Bauer and Dr. Gilbert Lai. Effie Rezkala and Thuvashan Rajagulasingham. Taylor Mathewson, Don Singh Khan. And our judge advisors, Jaylene Kashowski and Caitlin Walsh. And actually, our judges are here right now. So they're going to pop on their cameras, say hello, and just kind of wave to everyone. Hello, judges. Hi, Caitlin, Gilbert, Don, Taylor, Effie, Thuvashan. Boy, the glasses, I love them, brother. Thank you so much for being here, judges. Thanks for everything you've done this weekend. I know you've seen a lot of really exciting teams. Anyone have anything you want to say on behalf of the judges? T, maybe?
On behalf of the judges, thank you very much for the amazing presentations and the time you guys took to articulate your thoughts and your ideas. We were blown away, and honestly, some of the choices were very tough. So congratulations once again, and thank you for participating.
And thank you for dedicating your time. You know, it's a Sunday. There's lots of things you could have been doing, but you were here to support the STEMathon and support all these students on their fabulous journey. So thank you so much. And now, folks, it's time to hand out the awards. So, Mahak, you ready to do this?
I'm so excited. Let's get to it.
Okay. Our first set of awards is going to be for the games and activities. And the first award is going to be for the Kahoot. Our Kahoot winners are Houston S from Team 9, the Assembly 9. Mackenzie F from Team 15, the Alpha Dogs. And Gurkirat G from team number 6, we who shall not be named. Congratulations to our Kahoot winners. And the prizes they're going to be getting are first Canada face masks, lip gloss, purple bandana, a cooler bag, and a green book. This is what we plan on the prizes being. Due to availability, things might change slightly, but that's going to be like the basic gist of what you're getting. Congratulations. And someone will be in touch with you to get your addresses so we can make sure we can ship all this stuff to you. The next prizes are for the Breakout EDU game that was played on Zoom during the activities this afternoon. And these winners are also getting a face mask, lip gloss, purple bananas, cooler bag, and green book. Kayla N from team number 15, the Alpha Dogs. Kirsten S, team number 9, the Assembly 9. And Kiana L, team number 6, we who shall not be named. Next up, it is the scavenger hunt, which was a lot of fun. I saw people had like 30, 40 items. These winners are getting First Canada socks, fanny pack, face mask, and shoelaces. And the winners are Mary O from Team 10, Odyssey X5478. Julia G from Team 19, Rosemary Crew. And Miriam S from Team 19, Rosemary Crew. Now, the next couple prizes are for the games that were being played in Slack. So the Wikipedia race game, winners are going to get a First Canada face mask and toque. Ella H from Team 8, Oodles of Poodles. Also getting a face mask and toque, the winner of the fastest typer game was Abir K from Team 20, the Krantz Soldiers. All right, our next set of awards is the most active team on Slack. And this one goes to, they're going to win a face mask, lip gloss, pink bandana, cooler bag, green book. Team number 20, the Krantz Soldiers, with Ria C, Nuha K, Abir K, Katarina F, and Duvergan P, and their mentor, Angela Bai. Congratulations. Okay, I want to talk about this next one. It's the most creative team name. And this team name is great. And they're going to be getting face mask, lip gloss, purple bandana, cooler bag, and green book. It is team number 11. Na Exponent 11. Why is this so good? Because sodium is the 11th element, but also, if you say na 11 times, you get na, 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 na. Hey, Jude. This was just the best team name. Congratulations, Olivia, Stephania, Isabel, Brianna, Tansu, and their mentor, Erica. The next award is the best branding. Face mask, lip gloss, purple bandana, cooler bag, and green book, going to team number 23, the Baby Yodas. Natasha C, Yuki Q, Harjab K, and their mentor, Mickey Corneo. Baby Yodas, you know. And the best infographic, as decided by the judges, they are getting face mask, lip gloss, pink bandana, fanny pack, black tube, tool set. The judges told us a little bit of information about them. They said, oh, we got team number 14, we've got the formula. Sally J, Melina V, Julie A, Sophia A, Julie C. The judges said this team's infographic is going places. They found the formula for great communication and they pushed all the right buttons. All right, now for our finalists. These are the teams. Oh, Team 2, the County Kids, Madeline Leslie, Kaylee Baker, Lauren Cox, Emily, and their mentor, Karen Lee. Our next finalist is team number 16, Sparks Connect, Victoria Bansal, Prutha Patel, Anahat Shergill, Priya Santha, and their mentor Shifa Abbas. And Team 11, not the 11th. Olivia Minichich, Stephanie Satsu, Isabel Kurbanova, Brianna Baker, Kansu Kar, and mentor Erica Rossi. All three finalist teams get a face mask, lip gloss, purple bandana, black sling bag, and black toque, and a purple hoodie. All right, so we've handed out a lot of awards. Those were all the awards for First Canada's Flag. But the next set of awards is some bigger prizes for some really, really important things. Our first award is the Gracious Professionalism Award. These awards were nominated by the mentors. They picked students who they thought exemplified gracious professionalism throughout the event, both on Slack, in calls, and in any other way. The winners will be receiving a 32-inch ViewSonic monitor and a First Canada face mask. Here's what the judges had to say about the first winner. This individual has been hustling, happily taking responsibility for the team's design and involving all opinions. They have been very responsive to everyone's questions and ensuring that everyone felt included, was up to date, and feeling good. This individual also took the time to ask other team members if they were doing all right to allow for a stress-free work environment, stayed calm and productive for the entire night, and was crucial to a successful STEMathon. The winner is Emily W. from Team 7, the Virtual Steamers. Our next winner, the judges had to say, was a leader, kind, respectful, hardworking. At their first STEMathon, this person has been all of the above while motivating, ensuring opinions are shared, and putting their team first. As a self-proclaimed introvert, they have united their team while pushing themselves outside their comfort zone by interacting with new mentors and students. This individual always checked if their team members were working on tasks they felt comfortable with and always lent a helping hand. They made their team proud and truly embody gracious professionalism. Congratulations to Olivia M. from Team 11. Well, now, Mahak, our big three awards. So the winners of these big three awards not only will get the great prizes we'll be telling you about in a second, they are going to be invited to come on First Canada Live for the awards gala on Tuesday night to give their pitch in front of the entire First community, which means there will be sponsors watching who'll be hearing this pitch, mentors from all sorts of teams. You know why there's going to be all sorts of teams watching? Because at the same show, we're going to be handing out the District Dean's List semifinalists and the District Chairman's Award. So that is a huge honor, right, Mahak?
That is so cool. And especially like if you want to turn your pitch into a reality, that's the perfect way to do it.
Yeah, and so details about this will be posted in the Slack channels of the winners. And we're going to be actually having a meeting after this Zoom call is over and after the awards are done to kind of go over some of the protocols and what's going to be happening. So it's a huge honor to these teams. So let's start handing out the awards. And our first award is for Best Pitch. The Pitch Award is given to the team who delivered a confident summary of the business aspects of their solution along with a compelling infographic. The winners of this award, each team member receives a brand new ViewSonic webcam and a First Canada face mask. This team excelled in the area of their pitch. The strength of their pitch had us wanting to subscribe. Their strong user survey, buy one, give one model, and virtual business attire had us steaming. Period. Congratulations to Team 7, the Virtual Steamers. Lauren W., Emily W., Maeve G., and their mentor, Nikita Jotsingani. The next award is for Best Product and Best Project. The winners will be receiving a brand new Samsung 15-inch Chromebook. That's one for each team member. I know, Mahak, it is wild. The project award goes to the team who identified a real problem, researched possible solutions, developed a unique solution, and prepared a demo to provide a proof of concept. This team excelled in the area of project or product. Our winning team was presented with a challenge and they soldiered on. Their sound product design had our heart rates elevated, and boy, what a solution. Congratulations to team number 20, the Krantz Soldiers. Ria C, Nuha K, Abir K, Katarina F, Duvaragaran G, and their mentor, Angela Bai. And now it's time to hand out our overall champion of the STEMathon. That's right, the overall winner. And the winners will be receiving brand new Lenovo V15 notebooks. This is the most prestigious award at the STEMathon. It goes to the team who has not only defined and solved a real world, but also delivered a pitch explaining their business aspects, including a compelling infographic. This team also kept in mind first values while working together as a team. They excelled in all phases, including the product, project, and their pitch. The judges especially love this team's high and low-tech accessible vision. They framed their business plan well, sharing detailed plans for the future. I wonder where we will see this team go. Congratulations to team number 17, Wander Vision. Nikki Q, Victoria Z, Pauline L, Megan G, Caitlin C, and mentor Megan McEwen. Those are our winners, and we're going to be back in just a couple seconds. All right, hey, we're back. You know, sometimes that's how things go. For some closing remarks, we need to welcome to the stage someone who's been an integral part of the STEMathon for the past 2 years, been the driving force behind all of this, guiding all of us with her vision to execute such a beautiful event and just making sure everything happened. No task was too small. For the Vice President of Partnerships for First Canada and 2016 Woody Flowers Finalist Award winner, Artie Javeri.
Hello. Hi, Karthik. Hi, Mehek. Thank you so much. What an amazing event. Really thank you to everybody. A huge shout out to all of the students that showed up for this weekend, putting up amazing presentations, slideshows, infographics, and really creating everything. Like Mehek just said, some of them even posted them last night. So everybody tirelessly working through the hours and getting all your information, and something that's very passionate, the topic that's something that's very passionate to First, limitless accessibility. Really thank you for being able to participate in that, giving us your feedback, your thoughts, how you would put solutions out there in the world. So thank you for being here with us, all the students. A big thank you. If we were in a big studio or auditorium, you'd be able to hear all the claps and all the excitements for all the winners. But again, thank you for being here with us. The one more thing that I'd like to share is topics like the limitless accessibility that you've heard, that you've actually researched all throughout the weekend, provided solutions for, and also topics around allyship that you heard from some of our speakers today and from our youth council yesterday on topics around adversity. I hope you can take some of that back to you, to yourself, and be able to find in your day-to-day life solutions around how you can make the world a better place. I think each one of us can do a little bit to help bring more solutions and more ideas and more newer ways of doing things. So I hope you've learned something over this weekend and are able to take something back to you to make a little difference in your little life. I also want to thank all of our speakers that came out, Dr. Imogen Ko, we had Dr. Kathleen yesterday, and our youth council members, as well as our sponsors who have really done a great deal for us to bring this show to you today and this event. So thank you to Magna International, to Enbridge Gas, and to Cinex Canada and Rockwell Automation to be bringing this event to all of you, to be able to bring those amazing prizes and the entire event to you. So just wanted to thank everybody. Hope you all had a great time. I know it's been a long day. I won't take up much more time, but just wanted to give you all a great shout out, a thank you. And hopefully we'll have this event next time in person if we can. Otherwise, we'll see you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Artie. Mahak, I'm a little sad right now because the STEMathon's over. And this has just been such an amazing event. The same feeling I get at in-person events when the event comes to the end. It's like, oh, it's over because I don't want to go. I just want to keep talking and doing stuff. Right, Mahak?
Yeah, it's like at the end of the event, you're like walking away with your bag. Now just shut my laptop down. I have to go downstairs after like sitting here for 24 hours. But I know it's definitely, I would love to do a STEMathon for like 48 hours, yeah. 7 weeks.
And I have to say, this has been hard because we love first. And I think you probably got that from the conversation with Shifa. And we love the in-person events, and they've been such a big part of all of our lives for so long, and we miss that. But I hope that you've all felt that you got a little slice of that this weekend, and you got a little taste of that, just so we have something to get us by until the next time we can do this. But thank you to everyone, the judges, the youth council, the organizers, all the participants, the mentors. We got something special coming for you. We got some special swag. It's be a First Canada bag and also a surprise that we can't even tell you about yet, but we'll be sending emails out or Slack messages or something to get your addresses and some feedback and all that good stuff, but we will be getting you prizes too. Thank you to everyone. Listen to the message that Artie said. Listen to the messages from Dr. Cole. Listen to the messages from Shifa. We're changing culture in this program, and we are actually accomplishing things, and we can keep doing it. So stay safe out there, keep having fun, and I can't wait till we see you all. So everyone, have a great night. If you're one of the three winning teams who won those big prizes, stay tuned to Slack where you'll get notifications about how we're going to be meeting up very, very soon. But everyone else, have a great time, get some sleep, and see you on First Canada Live and the awards gala Tuesday night. Bye, folks.
Bye, everyone.